You were listening to a Nerd Room podcast, a member of the Star Wars Commonwealth Podcast Network. Be sure to check out more from the Star Wars Commonwealth on the web at starwarscommonwealth.com and take your first steps into a larger world. Hey everyone, and welcome to the Nerd Room, where we talk all things Star Wars, Marvel, and DC. This is episode number 99. We're discussing Star Wars: The Last Jedi. I'm one of your hosts, Tim.
I'm Troy.
And I'm Sunjay.
Gentlemen, we are finally here after 2 years of speculating, of patiently waiting. We have finally seen The Last Jedi, and we're here tonight to talk exclusively about the narrative, Luke Skywalker, and kind of this divisive reception that it's got. This is a Star Wars film. The expectation is that everyone's going to love it. But we've seen a real divide in fandom, almost a divide at this table. We're starting to get a little bit of a vibe here of this is almost kind of feeling like a review of maybe a DC film.
I was going to say, like, DC is no longer the divisive film universe anymore. Star Wars has taken the mantle and has run with it. And I kind of like it. For once, you know, people aren't battling over Batman v Superman. They're battling over The Last Jedi.
Which is strange, because to me, this is somewhat unexpected, the reception of this. It's been a real extreme swing from one side to the other. I'm landing on the side. I absolutely love this coming out of the theater. You know, I was prepared for what was going to happen, and I'm happy with the direction that Rian Johnson took. But you look at the fan base, it's almost cut directly in half. Even to the point of hatred going towards Rian Johnson, people calling for Disney to remove this from canon. We're not even a week out, and there's a fan petition, a literal fan petition out there to remove this film from canon. Now, I don't agree with this kind of extreme reaction, this hatred towards Kelly Marie Tran and Rian Johnson and the reception that they're getting on social media. If you don't like the film, that's fine. If you love the film, even better. You have your right to express it, but don't go trashing human beings. This is not the fan base. This is not the fandom that I am associated with. And I'm happy to say that everyone in the Commonwealth, everyone's been very receptive towards the movie, pointing out some of the issues. A lot of guys that we've talked to had issues with the first viewing, and it's the second and third viewing that have really hooked people into this. But Troy, how are you feeling coming out of this?
Oh, let down, man. Let down. Disappointed. I've seen the movie twice now. I'll probably go see it again to really convince myself here of what I'm witnessing. You know, the first time coming out of the film, I actually couldn't believe what I just saw. I was like, is this really The Last Jedi? Is this really what I've been waiting 2 years for? And it's not a bad film by any means. It's just my expectations were a little different. But the second viewing definitely helped me gear towards a certain character, which we will talk about later on in this review. But wow. JJ, man, I just can't wait for JJ to get back here and steer this ship properly. Yeah.
Now, Sunjay, you're coming at this from probably, you know, a new viewer to a new fan to Star Wars. What is your reaction? Because from Troy and I's perspective, we're kind of sitting on the opposite ends of the camp. Not that Troy's being the hateful person or not, but he's sitting on the end of fandom that didn't receive this as well, where I'm sitting on the opposite end. And you're coming at this from not being as ingrained in this universe. Coming out of the theater, what were your first impressions of the film?
Yeah, I was super excited, actually, when we first came out of the theater. I thought, man, this is a pretty good film. And I really enjoyed a lot of good scenes, and I thought it was a really fun movie. And I had issues with it, but I think maybe my issues may have been a little bit different than your guys' issues, because I don't read the comic books, I don't read the books, I don't read any of the other tie-ins. So for me, Star Wars kind of revolves around one person. So for you guys, you probably know a lot more Star Wars lore than I do. 100% guarantee you guys know.
I'd say in this case, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
The less lore you know about the books and the comics, the better you'll probably receive this film.
I think so, because if you look at kind of the audience reception, on Rotten Tomatoes is sitting at, what, 55%?
Yeah,
56.
Which is below Suicide Squad. I just had to get that in there.
Crazy. That's
but
crazy.
The critics is at 93%.
Yeah.
Do you feel maybe the critics are, a little bit biased? I mean, or do you think the fans are like, I guess it depends on how you receive this film, but do you think the critics are willing to overlook certain things because they are big Star Wars fans, or do you think the opposite? Because we've seen a lot of Star Wars fans that are hardcore fans not enjoy this film.
Well, it's interesting that you put it that way, because I'm not sure with the critics, and this really makes me question the kind of the division you get on Rotten Tomatoes. We always use it as a proxy, kind of a gauge, and we usually use the critics score as to kind of rank these things relative to one another. But this is one of the first times I've ever seen it go this far in the opposite direction. And I don't know if this is just a huge fan outcry reaction to this. Is this people walking into this expecting kind of Empire Strikes Back again? Because if you go and look at all the material, and we talked about this last week in quite a bit of detail, is, to me, at least, they've been preparing us for this film for 2 years. There's a literal quote from Luke Skywalker in the trailers that says, this is not going to go the way that you think. And to me, I've always received that as Rian Johnson, as the director, talking to the audience saying, look guys, this is going to be very, very different. And it's almost Lucasfilm putting a stake in the ground and saying, going forward, this is going to be a different universe. Because essentially, and almost literally in the film, they burn this to the ground, this universe, at least the foundation of it, and try to take it in a different direction. Yeah. And I think some people are seeing this as an extreme swing. It's not a gradual changing of the guard. It is a very abrupt change. You go from J.J. Abrams, there's a lot of...
like homage. Even.
Yeah, there's a lot of homage to the original trilogy in there. There's a lot of familiar elements. There's a lot of familiar storytelling. Mm-hmm. And this one, we're going in, I think, expecting something different, but maybe not this extreme.
Yeah.
And to me, I'm kind of sitting on the end of things where I'm looking at what was delivered here, and I'm looking at what my expectation level was. There's a few scenes in here I have problems with, but overall, I really enjoyed what Rian Johnson did with this, and I'm really looking forward to what he can do in a new trilogy without the shackles of the original trilogy and kind of that framework that's been set up around the saga films. So maybe going forward, I think that we're going to see a lot of people saying Rian Johnson isn't the person we want in this universe, but maybe people will be a bit more receptive if he doesn't have to fit into this square peg of the Star Wars universe that's been constructed for the last 40 years.
Yeah. See, I'm the opposite way around, because I like the guys that can play in the Star Wars sandbox as opposed to jump out of the sandbox and do something kind of different. I feel like with J.J. Abrams' film, he put all the tools in the right places to lead us somewhere else, and Rian Johnson starts off the film pretty much just like how Luke feels. He tosses the lightsaber, and I feel like that's his mentality throughout the whole film. Did you have expectations about Rey? Throwing it out the window. Snoke, I'm throwing it out the window. All these things he threw out the window. You introduced us to a couple, actually like 3 different force powers. Some of them were kind of wacky. One of them I grew to like the second viewing, which is the Kylo Ren and Rey connection. I thought that was actually kind of cool.
It could have went south, if Kylo Ren was in the washroom at the time and then Rey pops in, like, what are you doing? Like, oh my god.
but going to what you were saying, Sunjay, with the critics, I don't know, with that score, I mean, the critics are like, they're not as hardcore as like some of us are with Star Wars, right? So they might be looking at it as in a different sense, a different light as how like we're looking at it. So when they see these things, they might be viewing it on a different kind of scale as opposed to like some of the hardcore, like sweaty, huge Star Wars nerds that are just going, just ripping up this film, giving it that 56. Whereas the critics are like, well, it worked for me on this level. They're seeing it more as like a film and not so much of a Star Wars movie. So maybe that's why the score is high. I don't think there's any kind of like bad blood going on or any kind of bots or anyone's being paid out or anything like that. Yeah.
Do you think if this wasn't called Star Wars, if this was called like Star Stream or something, like just like an original film, do you think we'd even be talking about this film, or do you think it would make no noise whatsoever if this was like a complete, like, Star Wars didn't exist, this was like just a brand new, like, original film? Do you think we'd even like be talking about it here in the nerd room?
Oh, that's hard.
Well, you look at there's a lot of franchises that have tried to kick up in the last couple of years that are at least Star Wars adjacent. They're trying to create this thing. The only thing that's been successful is Guardians of the Galaxy, this kind of space opera, if you'll call it that.
Right.
And I don't know, it's hard to gauge that because we're sitting 40 years deep into this universe. into this fandom. This is a multi-generation fandom, one of the only ones that's like this. And it's a rabid fandom, and it's a passionate fandom.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And so that's why we're seeing this rapid swing. Like, The Force Awakens didn't get quite this same reception. People were calling it kind of a reiteration of A New Hope or whatever. And if you remember back, the prequel reception was not quite, I don't know if it was quite the same. There wasn't the same type of forum for expression.
Yeah.
There wasn't podcasts. There wasn't the internet, really. I guess maybe there was a bit, but
Right.
I don't think there was still that forum, that protective forum for someone to go out and say, F you, Ryan Johnson, or throwing out hate mail to Kelly Marie Tran. Like, it's
Right.
disgusting
Yeah,
to
it's
see stuff
horrible.
like that. It's, like I said, it's have an opinion, but express that and move on.
Yeah,
It
be a
doesn't
little
have to
classy
control
about
your
it, right?
whole...
Yeah. Like,
for sure.
separate the actor from the art. Like, it's not her fault. If you didn't like the scenes that she was in, it's not her fault. You know, she was just acting, and she was just got this role in Star Wars.
Yeah, Star Wars. Who's gonna turn down
Yeah,
that role?
really?
Exactly.
Like, no one in the right mind would ever turn down a
No.
role in Star Wars. So separate that, and it's kind of disgusting to see. I mean, I like to think we live in a better place, but some of the hate that she's been getting is just totally uncalled for.
I didn't hear about this till now. That's crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's not great. It's,
Yeah.
it's pretty bad out there. But you know what? At the end of the day, a lot of people still went and saw this film.
Oh, yeah.
This pulled in $220 million over the weekend, which puts me in the driver's seat finally for a prediction. I predicted 223, but I did go over. So I guess
Wah,
technically
wah.
Sunjay wins.
Yes, I guess I know Star Wars the most out of you three.
Well, you got 215.
Yeah, closest to without
yeah.
going over, right?
Okay, yeah.
So
Oh, shoot.
I was
Yeah.
closest, but
Yeah.
Sunjay wins by default. Troy was in
Price is right.
Default, the two greatest words in the English language.
So this thing, it did a little bit less, as we kind of predicted, as everyone really predicted, than The Force Awakens, $247 million. Of course it was going to do that. But it had a $450 million worldwide total for this weekend without opening in China.
Wow.
Jeez.
Very, very impressive. I think it's 4th or 5th all-time global opening.
Wow.
And some of those other films had the China box office. I think the Jurassic World... Jurassic World.
yeah.
I think it opened bigger, but it also opened in China. And I think one of the Fast and the Furious films as well. So this thing did gangbusters at the box office. People were going out and see this. When we went and saw this, the theater was jam-packed. It was a great experience. There was a lot of fans there. We did the opening night fan event. Now, you can't see me. I'm doing this in air quotes because we were promised kind of this cool fan event, and it really wasn't anything much more than seeing the movie an hour earlier than everyone else. We did get this exclusive card. I got like 6 of them. I think it's just a card set. So Simile got all of them. Everyone was giving them to me. And there's also this cool exclusive content. Now,
Yes.
I wasn't aware of what exactly that was. But as we sat down to the theater at 6 p.m., we walk in. They did have popcorn for everyone, but I think they had a limited amount because no one that I saw that we were with, all 18 of us, no one got the free popcorn.
Yeah,
Well,
I got my
the
own.
free popcorn.
I
You
got my
did?
own because
Yeah.
there's no butter though with it.
Wow.
Oh.
So I was like, nah, I gotta get my butter. Got it there. Yeah.
But we sit down and we go through what feels like a painfully long sequence of commercials and then finally get into the trailers. And then Ryan Johnson pops up on the screen and says, thank you. You are the hardcore fans. You guys are here opening night at 6 p.m. I have something special for you. I smacked Sunjay. I swore to God they were going to show a Han Solo trailer.
Oh.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
Okay.
But it makes sense that they didn't. They did you can't show Solo have that
Yeah.
crowd going all crazy
Yeah.
the first time they're seeing us, and then say, "Oh yeah, by the way, we have to go watch Last Jedi now."
Right.
Yeah.
But it was this really great vignette or tribute video to John Williams,
Yes,
who had been
man.
doing the score for 40 years, walked through the process from within The Last Jedi, going back and looking at him, doing the score from A New Hope.
Yeah.
So it had Ryan Johnson sitting there on the sidelines while he's scoring the movie. Really cool. John Williams is a master. He is just the greatest of all time.
Yeah.
And it
He's
was
the
really
GOAT.
cool. It was about 5, 6, 7 minutes long?
Yeah, just
Yeah.
enough. I want to see more of that though on
Yeah.
the Blu-ray content.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because Star Wars always gives us some really good Blu-ray content.
Oh,
for
yeah, they
sure.
do.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've heard that there's like 20 minutes of deleted scenes coming.
Yeah.
Oh, release
Wow,
the Zack
crazy.
Snyder cut. They're calling for it. He's a big Star Wars fan.
Yeah, that was really cool to see that. I think it was a great way to start off the film.
It
It
was.
kind of got you into that nostalgic feeling. And then, boom, we get the opening crawl.
Yes.
Yes.
Brilliant here.
Good
Just
Coral. Yeah.
brilliant. And it was one of the things we talked about, speculating on what was the crawl going to be. How are they going to sort this out? Because this is the first time we're picking up a film directly after another. Usually there's a time gap, whether it's 6 months 10 years, whatever it's ever been, there's always a gap. So there's always some time to fill in with the crawl. This episodic nature of Star Wars always calls for a crawl because it's trying to fill you in on a story that you're jumping kind of into the middle of. This was always George Lucas's idea. You're jumping into the middle of a story or whatever, going back to the start. And this time we're picking up directly where we left off. And we're always worried, like, we need something to start in space. Yes. So where is this going to start? And we've seen a lot of speculation from around fandom that we're actually going to start with the evacuation of Dakar. And we do start in space with the First Order after eliminating the Republic, the New Republic, from Starkiller Base and kind of coming off the back end of the destruction of their mega weapon. They're attacking and trying to put an end to the Resistance here. Now, this opening battle sequence is a bit reminiscent of Empire Strikes Back, one of my favorite films, one of my favorite sequences, where you have the Empire pinning down the rebels on Hoth. And I got a lot of feeling for this. This really got me into the film right at the start here. And I love seeing Poe. I love seeing this battle sequence. What do you guys think of this first battle sequence, kind of throwing you in to the deep end of a Star Wars film?
Honestly, the battle sequence was cool, but I could have done without the one-liner jokey humor. Like, I was like, what is this? Is this like a kid's movie when he's like, hello, I can't hear you? And I was just sitting there like, this better not be 2.5 hours of one-liners and jokes like this, because honestly, I don't know if like that's the way Star Wars has always been. It doesn't seem like it to me.
So the only time we've ever really seen that, and this is something we're going to touch on right here, is the humor aspect of it, because that's something that's a little different than we've seen in the past. But if you remember back Force Awakens, our first interaction with Poe and Kylo is very similar to this.
I don't think so. So when this movie started off, like, well, obviously we get Kylo, or sorry, we get Poe and we get Hux.
Yeah.
And Hux, in the last film was kind of powerful. He's kind of a little bit of a whiner, but you're like, okay, this guy has some respect.
Right.
And here, Poe just makes him look like an idiot. And I'm just like, you got to be kidding me. Like, what? I was getting worried. What's going on here? Whereas, when we go back to Force Awakens, which you brought up with Kylo and Poe, it doesn't take anything away from Kylo Ren. Kylo Ren is still that presence where, like, you're not going to mess around with this guy. Mm-hmm. Whereas Poe kind of comes off like that very Han Solo-like character. Yeah. But here, I was like, come on. Like, you put the guy on hold, and it was bothering me, and I was really holding on to my seat. Like, it can't be a movie like this the whole time through. It cannot be like this. But then we get the bombers, and the bombers is great, and I like that whole plan, the strategy going on here with the battle of how Poe has to stay low to the ground, take out the 4 cannons.
Yeah, looks awesome.
Looks awesome. Yeah. Like, that's great. And those bombers look kind of like Boba Fett's ship, I thought. They kind of look similar to.
Oh, okay.
And I've never seen those bombers before. They operate kind of interesting.
Yeah, they're really cool. Really slow.
Really slow. Very dangerous.
Yeah. But going back to the humor here, I agree with you.
Yeah.
The first time around, it took me out of the film. And there's a couple of very abrupt sequences in this film, scenes in this film, that take me, it's jarring. But at the same time, the second viewing, once I knew those were coming, they fit a lot better into the story, into the way that the film is presented.
Right.
But I don't disagree with you. That whole Poe stuff at the start, it went on a little bit long.
Yeah.
That kind of, it could have just been the one sequence, and you have that guy saying, I think he's stalling or whatever.
Yeah.
But it did do that. And there's a couple other scenes in here that I found, like I said, they were quite jarring in their presentation. It just didn't feel like it flowed right.
Yeah.
And so that's almost the issue I have. Not even so much issue, but the first part of the film on my first viewing, it felt like it was slower. Like it didn't go as quick as I thought. The pacing was a bit off.
Yeah.
And some of the jokes and some kind of the abrupt stops and starts that we do get in the film, it kind of made me step back a bit. But second viewing, that all goes away from me.
Right.
I don't see any of that in the second viewing. I don't know if that's an anticipation. I know it's coming.
Right.
But it feels better when you sit down and you actually know that this joke is coming, or you know that this very abrupt scene is going to happen.
I have to watch it a second time. I'm actually really excited to watch it a second time because, as Tim said, that scene, the first time I watched it, opening night, definitely took me out of the film. I was taking a step back and I was like, oh, God.
I was wondering why the other captain wasn't taking Hux's spot. The other guy that called out exactly what Poe's plan was. Like, that guy's like, whoa, he knows what's going on. He has his stuff together.
Because he was not a famous actor.
I guess so. I mean, Hux threw down a crazy speech in The Force Awakens. And then you get Hux here, who's just a completely different Hux.
He looks like, he's like so incapable of doing anything. Like, I wouldn't even let him lead like a daycare. Like, how is this guy supposed to be? What is he, like number 3 in command or something?
Well, it's between him and Kylo throughout Force Awakens in this film.
Well, Kylo wins by default. Again, default coming back to it. Like, really, would you trust Hux to do anything? Like, if you're like, hey, I'm building like my deck this weekend, Hux, do you want to join me? I wouldn't ask him. He's useless. Like, I wouldn't ask him to do anything.
Well, in the film here, he does let this dreadnought, which is a cool ship that
I like
we're
it.
seeing.
Yeah.
It's really cool. The commander on there was great, and the whole sequence with Poe and BB-8. BB-8 again, he's kind of playing almost what I'd call a prequel era droid.
Yeah.
He feels very much like R2-D2 out of the prequel era. Just it's almost like slapstick humor, and it's a little bit different than the BB-8 we got in The Force Awakens.
Yes.
Like I felt, and there's another sequence later on where he's in the AT-ST and he's kind of marching around in that thing. Again, very prequel era. I don't dislike it, but it felt a little different, and that's one thing that we have to kind of be a bit cognizant of here. And the original trilogy was like this as well, is that you had 3 different directors and one writer, one narrative. But now we're going into a world where we have 3, or now we're going to have 2 different directors. But again, the writing is changing. So George Lucas helmed all of this, had a story going from point A to point B.
Yeah.
And this is a little different because we have Rian Johnson coming in and picking up where J.J. Abrams left off. You look at characters like Poe here, BB-8, and some of the other characters, Leia, that we do pick up a little later on, particularly Luke, is that it seems that J.J. laid some seeds for what he would have done in a sequel, and Rian Johnson's picked that up and actually changed the characters around a little bit. So sometimes I feel that the continuity isn't as smooth as you'd like it to be.
Right.
I find that the biggest character developments we get in here are really around Poe Dameron, who gets a lot more screen time than I thought he would.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get a lot from Luke and Rey, of course, and Kylo, who's absolutely fantastic.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to see that because when we get back around to discussing episode 9 or doing speculation for episode 9 for the next 2 years, it'll be interesting to see what JJ does, picking up again those threads, because like you said earlier on, Troy, there's a couple things in here that we've been speculating on for 2 years, and they're very, very abruptly addressed.
Yeah.
Snoke, Rey's parentage or the lineage there, some of the ideas of Luke and the Force. So it's going to be really, really interesting to follow the progression of this narrative, of this story, coming off the back end of The Last Jedi. Because as we get further and further into this film, we're going to see how characters change, how they develop, and how they actually break them down to kind of this foundational level. Because the only 2 people I feel that are mostly consistent from The Force Awakens through are Kylo and Rey. They feel like they have a great character progression in this film, and it's more or less smooth coming out of the back end of The Force Awakens.
Yeah.
Just to backtrack on something you said, talking about like one consistent voice behind the scenes, should that be Kathleen Kennedy? Like, is that her? Because she's kind of involved in everything, isn't? I always thought that she was kind of the Kevin Feige of the Star Wars universe.
Kind of, but she's a producer, but I don't think so much for like story development wise. I mean, that would be like Pablo, really.
Yeah, well, he kind of keeps track of canon, but Rian Johnson was more or less handed the reins. He had the creative freedom, right?
Yeah.
They're giving him this new trilogy, but they've also seemingly given him a lot of leeway in this film. They brought JJ in. You look at what JJ has done in the past: Super 8, Lost. You with Cloverfield. But all of those feel somewhat like, especially Super 8, in that love letters to the films of the 80s.
Yeah.
And JJ is someone that captures nostalgia very well. He's able to present something as you remember watching it.
Look at his Star Trek.
Star
Trek.
Yeah, exactly.
So he's able to do that, reboot things, and bring things like I really like this comparison of when you watch Star Wars: The Force Awakens, you watch it as if you were a child rewatching it. So he's captured those scenes and the important pieces of Star Wars and put them into that film to make you feel like you're rewatching something from the 80s. Where Rian Johnson's taken this and said, no, we're going to break this down and do something totally different. And you see it right from the start here.
Yeah.
You see it right from the humor that we see in this opening scene with Poe and Hux. And you see it as it progresses through this film into the eventuality when we pick up with Luke.
Yeah.
But before we actually get there, we get a really cool sequence with Kylo Ren as well. Jumping into a starfighter after they've chased them through hyperspace, which is something really cool that actually ties really nicely in with Rogue One. If you remember when Jin's going through the individual plans in that from Scarif.
Oh, Scarif, right, okay.
You get them talking about tracking through hyperspace, which is kind of a really cool nod to Rogue One, something that's been going on, something that's a legacy from the Empire. I really like that.
And the Radis, we saw the Radis.
Yeah, the Radis is the ship.
Which is named after Radis.
Yeah, right, Admiral Radis.
Rogue One, which is awesome.
Oh.
Yeah,
so, all this stuff went right over my head.
Yeah, that's the ship that Leia's on that eventually is blown up by the TIE fighters. That's something that we talked about, we speculated on, that was probably going to happen. He was going to hesitate, and Leia being put into a situation where it could be life or death. And we do actually see that. We see, first of all, the death of Admiral Akbar.
We don't really even see it.
He's not even there.
Talk about it.
No.
Like, oh, and by the way, it's a trap died.
And that guy's
What?
been there since the beginning. He's like an OG guy.
He's an OG guy. Yeah, like,
he's from like episode 4.
Episode 6.
So he's in episode 6, and he's
Return
in,
of the Jedi, right? Is when we first see him.
and he's in Force Awakens.
Yes, he is in The Force Awakens.
Yeah.
And he's briefly in The Last Jedi, but he is killed off here. So essentially the entire leadership of the Resistance is knocked off by these 2 TIE fighters.
Gone.
So gone like that. Now, this is another point where the fandom is quite shooken. And it's the portrayal of Leia here. I think Carrie Fisher is absolutely fantastic in this film. And there's a lot of conjecture around how they're going to actually wrap this story up with Leia, given the untimely death of Carrie Fisher, the princess of Star Wars fandom. And I think it's a testament to the crew at Lucasfilm, Rian Johnson, that they didn't take this opportunity to make or give Leia a story where she actually dies in this film. They could have very easily done it with this scene where she's off in space, almost kind of Guardians of the Galaxy like.
Yeah, well, but the film was done.
It was done shooting, right?
Yeah.
But they could have tweaked it in post, right? They could have
a lot of work.
It would have been a lot of work because there's a lot of Leia scenes later on, right? But you could have maybe gotten around it.
For sure.
But what are your guys' thoughts on Leia using the Force and actually sitting out in the cold depths of space for several, what could be seconds, but actually pulling herself in? A lot of people are calling it Leia Poppins.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Well, you mentioned it with the Guardians of the Galaxy, you know, where you get that sense where she's like frozen.
Yeah.
Right? Which that looked all great, but then she does that, I'm Mary Poppins, y'all, and comes right back into the ship, and I was like, what are you doing? It didn't even look good. It's one thing that they did that, but it didn't really look that good. It looked like Superman from the 80s.
Christopher Reeves,
And the power sense it's just off. I mean, when we read Bloodlines, there was an incident where she gets blown up too. There's the napkin bombing.
Yeah.
And she survives that, and we've had senses of her, you know, using her force to like sense Luke in Bespin from Empire and stuff like that. And those subtle things, which works for me, that makes sense. But for her, full blown, you know, I guess rejuvenate herself after she's been killed in space, and then puts this bubble over herself, and then flies. Like, Jedis have never flown before, not in canon, and she flies to the ship. One-handed.
She's not flying.
She's just pushing stuff out of the way to propel her forward.
Oh man, it wasn't, for me, it wasn't pretty at all. I didn't like this scene at all.
You know, I barely even remember this. Like, I kind of do, and I kind of just remember glancing over it. Didn't leave a lasting impression for me, but a lot of people are very upset about this scene.
I've never seen that ever in the cartoons, like not Rogue One, Rebels or Clone Wars. I'm sure in the extended U, there must have been a moment maybe when someone flew or levitated. I mean, we see Luke levitate kind of at the end here when he's meditating, but...
Does Leia, so she has the Force in her, and can use it?
Well, that's the thing that really haven't developed in the new canon very much, is how powerful is Leia. Mm-hmm. And that's why I kind of like the scene. I agree that the first viewing, it's a bit abrupt. You know, like, I thought this was going to be the end for Leia, personally. We knew from some of the speculation that she was going to be injured in the first part of this film, and whether or not she was going to come back was the big question mark.
Yes.
And she does. But this scene in itself, again, it's my second viewing that I appreciate it more, because there's always got to be, or there's going to be, I don't know if the Princess Leia novel really goes into any more depth about this. We're going to get some instances in the comic books where we do see her using the Force a bit more. Mm-hmm. But it's because they haven't really done much with her in the Force outside of Bloodlines that this seems, again, like a very abrupt change or abrupt shift in a character. Yeah. Is that all of a sudden she's now using the Force. Personally, I think it makes sense, right? It's your body's reaction, if you're powerful in the Force, to preserve yourself. But I will give it to you, it does look a bit funny. Yeah. And because there's been no build-up, maybe if they had teased it a bit in the Force Awakens but don't they talk about her, isn't there somewhere, maybe this is the EU, where they actually talk about her refusing or not choosing. Maybe this is in Aftermath, where she chooses to not train with Luke. And she chooses to go more the political route instead of the Jedi route.
Yeah, I've never hearing something about that, but there is. I'm going to say spoilers. Have you read at all or read any clips from a certain point of view?
No, but go ahead. It's soft canon as well.
Yeah, but you do find out essentially that I think as Obi-Wan was going to want to present Luke to Yoda. Yoda's like, no, I don't want Luke. I want Leia. Like, that's who I want to train. She's the one who needs to be trained. Luke's too much like her dad, basically. So I wonder, like, if Yoda sensed this all along in Leia, that she was that powerful in the Force. That kind of makes some kind of sense that, Yoda's had some kind of inkling the whole time that she's that powerful.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Do you have an issue, though, with Rey being able to adopt the Force so quickly?
No, it's not even about about being able to use the Force.
Yeah, but her being able to use the Force so quickly, and Leia after 40 years being able to do something to save her own life.
A little bit, but it's more of like the power they presented is just so far-fetched. Like, I know we're in a world where, like, an old man can shoot lightning bolts and whatnot, and Yoda can lift an X-Wing, but this power is like something we've never seen before, except in like maybe a video game like The Force Unleashed. But it felt very out of place for a Star Wars film. Then again, the way it was executed. But if you rewind a little bit, when we do see the initial bombing and when Leia gets blown out of her ship, that was breathtaking. Like, I think the whole crowd went silent because we're like, whoa, is this how it goes down? Like, that part was great. It's just the aftermath when we see how they resolve it. That's when I was like, okay.
So is it the floating you don't like?
It's the floating and the power. It just, because the power for me just doesn't make any sense in the world of Star Wars.
So all the way I took it and understood it was that, like, she's in the vacuum of space, so gravity, right? No gravity, and she's just pulling herself with the Force towards the ship.
But I guess in a sense though, like, if that's the case, then you should be able to fly if you can use the Force, right? Like, if you can lift up a rock, you should be able to, like, levitate yourself and move from here to there. But I see what you're saying, because if you're in the vacuum of space, all she's doing, instead of essentially pulling a rock to her, she's pulling herself towards the ship.
Yeah, or the ship towards her, kind of.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you just need you just need that momentum, right? You just need a little push. But it's getting that push.
But then there's the other aspect where it's like you're dead. Like, you're dead in space. Like, you're done. So the fact that she could live or brought herself back and then does the whole Force power, there's just too much thrown at me at that time where I'm like, I've never seen this in the movies, and to see it now presented like this from a character who's been around from the original, who's never ever used a Force power physically, maybe in the sense like she could sense Luke, but apart from that, never really done something this dramatic. It's just like, whoa, pretty out left field for me.
It kind of reminded me of Guardians of the Galaxy, the first one. Where Peter Quill is in space.
Yeah.
And that bothered me because I was like, what? He's just a human. But then in the sequel, they're like, oh, he's like part planet god thingy.
Yeah.
So that made sense. Yeah. They like went back and they like made it make sense. And for this one, I was just like, oh, she'd be dead. Yeah. I'm no like astronaut. Yeah, I'm no astronaut or astrophysicist, but pretty sure if you're out in the vacuum of space, no suit, you're dead.
You're done.
Yeah, blood boils. You blow. Yeah. You know what? It is, they maybe could have handled it in a different way to show her using the Force powers.
Right.
And I don't know if it was a plot device to essentially eliminate the Resistance leadership.
Right.
And incapacitate Leia to the point where this Vice Admiral Holdo had to come into the picture. And then you see, because of that, you see a lot of character progression of Poe Dameron.
Yes.
He gets demoted from his kind of hotshot attack on the Dreadnought, but then he comes back and has this real antagonistic relationship with Holdo, which I really like. So in the absence of Leia, you get a lot more character progression of Poe Dameron. If Leia's there, he respects her enough that he's not going to do what he did.
Exactly.
He essentially mounts a mutiny on this Vice Admiral Holdo, because you get an impression that once Leia is injured and she's kind of left in this coma, you get the impression when they're announcing who's next in line, Poe's kind of putting up his head like, that's me, that's me.
Noise.
And here comes Poe Dameron. And no, it's this Vice Admiral Holdo. So I like that they're able to, maybe not the execution of it, but that they're able to put Leia on the sidelines for a bit of the movie.
Yes.
And that made room for these two other characters to come into the picture. And I'm really loving Poe Dameron in here. He is fantastic. He gets probably one of the best arcs in the film.
Oh, yeah.
Mounting this mutiny eventually and pulling off Finn and Rose to do the side job and really pushing the limits of what the Resistance is. You get a bit of Han Solo there, but you also get a bit of what's his name from Rogue One, Cassian
Yeah.
Andor. Thank you. That he is almost willing to go that next step to defeat the First Order. You saw this in the first sequence with the bombers, right? He disobeyed direct orders from General Leia in the sense that he went and just blew this ship up, and really was the one that pushed the sacrifice of all of these resistance fighters for the greater good. Poe Dameron is a greater good type of guy, where Leia seems to be concentrating a bit more early on here on the individuals at what cost. So we took down a dreadnought, but it cost us all of our bombers, and it cost us a number of resistance fighters, including Rose, here a new character introduced, her sister Paige.
Yes.
And this is the first instance, too, where we get this idea of yin and yang. You see the necklace that they're wearing that is later used by DJ. And this is something that they really do a lot in this film, is this duality of things. And that's one of the on the nose, this yin yang thing. We see this in Rey. We see this with a lot of characters, almost with Poe Dameron and Vice Admiral Holdo, two very different approaches. And eventually it comes down to a balanced approach of both. And that's what I like about this film, is every character, every arc seems to have some relationship to this overarching theme of balance. And I think that's what Rian Johnson really excelled at in the first part of this film. And it takes, again, 2 viewings.
Yeah.
And now whether that's a detriment to the film, I don't know. Can you capture all this in one viewing? I don't think so. It wasn't until my second viewing that I started to see a lot of these themes really being portrayed in each and every character as we progress through the film.
Yeah. And I think that's Star Wars for the most part, right? They're very layered. You know, they got to marinate. You got to watch those movies a couple times to really appreciate them. But yeah, you know, I liked Laura Dern, is it?
Yeah.
I liked her. She was pretty cool. I actually very interested. I mean, I've always been interested to go back to Claudia Gray's book, Leia, because I'm a big fan of Claudia Gray's writing, and I believe that character is first introduced in that book. Right?
Was she?
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Yeah, not Bloodlines, but the Leia. The other Leia book.
Oh, Princess Alderaan?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So I haven't read that yet.
I haven't read that yet either. So I guess she's introduced in that book, and they go on an adventure to Crate and whatnot. So I definitely want to check that out to see how this character holds up with her.
Cool.
Her prequel.
Yeah, that makes me a bit more interested in this character, because I liked her, but she again has. Well, we're into full spoiler territory here, I guess, but she is kind of a one and done, right?
Yes.
I thought that we would see her progress within the Resistance, but she has the kick-ass sacrifice scene later on,
and they build her up so well that when she does make that sacrifice, like, oh shoot, like I was really starting to like her.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, and she has that comment about Poe. He's a real hothead. I like him.
Yeah. Right?
After having this really antagonistic relationship with him throughout the whole part, or this whole sequence of the film.
Yeah.
Why didn't she tell Poe her plan? Like, was that
a good question?
Like, because it would have taken 2 seconds, and we could have avoided a mutiny, and we could have avoided Finn and Rose going off to Las Vegas or wherever they went off to.
Canto Bite.
Like, it would have taken 2 seconds to be like, look, dude, I got the plan. We're going to draw him over here and then escape. Like, boom. I just solved, like, a mutiny right there.
Right. It's true.
Well, there's a lot of the story that hinges off of this relationship, right? You mentioned the Finn, Poe, and BB-8 sequence on Canto Bite, as well as what eventually is what most of the Resistance is destroyed by, and that's DJ turning his back on them and revealing that this is actually what they're doing. They're cloaking their ships, and then they end up losing 3/4 of the Resistance on the way there. So that's an interesting point, because I this whole Finn, Rose, and BB-8 sequence and on Canto Bite that is orchestrated by Poe and Maze Katana as well, which is kind of a weird insert into the film as well.
Oh, poor Maz. Poor Maz.
Troy, tell me how you feel about that scene.
It was so out of place. It was so out of place. You know, Maz was probably one of the biggest hits for a new character that came out of The Force Awakens. Everybody loved Maz Kanata. She was awesome. She was great. I think right away we're all like, where is that Black Series of this figure?
Yeah.
You know? And we all knew she was going to be in this movie. And I'm thinking, nice, we get to go back to that planet, her castle, even though it was taken down, I guess. But we're going to see her in the flesh, not in a hologram, not in this weird Jetsons projecting thing. And she's in a battle the whole time doing like this you know, found footage going on with her, and she's explaining that, you know, you gotta go find do with the Rose and yada yada, and it was just so bad. And I was like, what are they doing right now? And the fact that it's Poe that reaches out to her, I'm like, you met Finn. You've never Finn for his eyes. What are you doing talking to Poe? You don't even know Poe. You know Finn.
That's a good point. I didn't even pick that up.
So an easier way to do this would have been to have her on the ship.
Yeah.
Because there's a deleted scene, or at some point in The Force Awakens, where she actually came back to Jakar with Rey or Finn or someone.
Right. Okay.
And then she could have been in the ship as they evacuated Jakar as well. And she said, I know this guy, this guy named DJ.
Exactly.
Maybe it would have made more sense for her to go on that mission along with Rose and Finn.
Yes.
It's just how it develops. I agree. Narratively, it really falls over on itself when it gets towards the end, towards the reveal that DJ turns back, and then everything kind of gets screwed up by it, and the fact that Holo never really reveals to Poe Dameron. And that's one thing I think that we have to recognize as we're talking through this, is that we're going to see holes here, and hopefully they get plugged up at some point or another with an actual story here. We're going through this at quite a high level and a bit of a pace here to try to get through the whole film. And we haven't even started really talking about Luke Skywalker. Right. But that's the thing here, is that I'm really interested in, because this is being an ongoing discussion within The Last Jedi. I think it's too dense of a movie to discuss for just an hour and a half here. We're going to have to go through this and look at the holes, and look at all Star Wars is like this, right? There's plot holes here and there, and they get plugged and filled by movies. Like Rogue One was fixing a plot hole in A New Hope, right?
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see these, because that's probably the outside of some of the humor and some of the other things we're going to talk about here. That whole Canto Bight scene, which is started right here at the start of the film with Poe, Finn, and Rose, and Poe's really opposition to Vice Admiral Holdo's plan.
Yeah.
That's what really drives this, and a lot of people weren't too thrilled with the whole Canto Bight scene.
No.
So sorry, before we get into that scene, go back to, what's her name? Holdo.
Hold the door.
Hold the door. Did you pick up kind of a romantic vibe between her and General Leia on the ship? It seemed like they were kind of...
No, but see, that could probably go back to the book, even though I haven't read it. You haven't read it, but that could be going back to the book because they're buddies.
Yeah.
But romantic level, though, I don't know. I didn't pick up on that one.
I kind of picked up on that, and that's fine, whatever. But this takes place right after The Force Awakens, right?
Yeah.
So didn't her love or Han just bite the dust?
Yeah.
And then she's moving on already. She's like, "Screw you, Han, going over to girl from Jurassic Park 1 and 3."
Well, that's another thing that's never really addressed, right? Is that you do see it with Luke Skywalker, right. But the death of Han Solo, because we pick up almost immediately after The Force Awakens, there's no real pause in this. The big pause we get in this film is when we go to Canto Bight. We step away from the main narrative and do something a little different for a while.
Yeah.
Do you think they had, or they should have had, something at the start of the film where there's the acknowledgement of the death of Han Solo? And being that this is a nice way to remind people about Han Solo, a character that's going to have a film in less than 6 months.
Yeah.
Do you think that's a missed opportunity there? Not to have just a slow emotional scene maybe at the start on Dakar where they're honoring Han Solo for who he was, the general of the rebellion and so on, that helped essentially save the resistance. And although the Republic did die, he prevented it from further destruction.
Yeah. I think that's one of the good parts about this film is the fact that they didn't really dive on a funeral or anything like that for Han, because it captures that presence of war. This is war and people can die any minute, just like that, and you don't get a chance to have a funeral and do a whole big Naboo funeral like Qui-Gon and whatnot, right? So that kind of works for me. But I wish we could have heard some more comments, maybe Leia looking at Poe being you're too much like Han, or just little things to be hey man, this guy was just around not too long ago. You can mention his name a little bit.
That would have been really cool.
Yeah.
You remind me so much of Han Solo, and look where he is.
Exactly.
They kind of reference that a little bit, right?
Yeah.
That hot-headedness got him. Han's luck ran out at this point in his life.
Yeah.
Don't let that run out on yours too early.
Right.
These type of lines, right? These not so much throwaway lines, but connective tissue lines.
Exactly. I could have definitely used that. And one thing, kind of just rewinding, it's a little off topic, but I really do appreciate the scene of Finn. So here we were when we start off the film, and I mentioned right off the bat, I didn't like the humor whatsoever. And then we get Finn in the water suit and it's leaking, and that's kind of what's going on? And as silly as it was, as soon as he finally comes across Poe and they have that cool reunion, because those two's chemistry is awesome, and right away Finn's just Ray, where's Ray? And I dropped. I was like, well, that's pretty cool, because Force Awakens built up such a cool connection between him and Ray, and he's really trying to find her. And I just really like how everything just kind of drops, and he mentions Ray's name, where is she? And I really like how his mission is to find Ray throughout the whole time. And it was much like in Force Awakens, he was trying to find Ray the whole time. So I do appreciate that little scene. I just wanted to give a shout out.
Well, now he's got a new love in his life.
Yeah, which is kind of forced because it's like a weird triangle, right? Rose seems into him, but he seems into Rey, and
Rey
Rey's
seems
just like, I'm
into-
just trying to train.
Yeah.
You know?
Just trying to be a Jedi.
Yeah.
That's actually a good point there, and that kind of made something click in my head here a bit about the Canto Bight scene and the driver behind it. It's to a degree maybe a bit more driven by Finn as we kind of talk through this, in the sense that he needs to get off. That's why he's looking to get into the escape pod, right?
Exactly.
He's looking to take that tracker as far away from the supremacy as possible. He
Right.
wants to protect Rey.
Yeah.
And maybe it's a bit more about that and less about Poe's mission. You know,
Right.
Finn's going along for the ride because he thinks this is the only way that he can prevent the First Order from getting their hands on Rey. Now, she eventually goes and gives herself up to the First Order, which is I think it is an appropriate way or appropriate progression for Rey.
Yeah.
But maybe if we look at it from that perspective more about why this whole Canto Bight scene actually happens, less about Holdo telling or not telling Poe what the plan was, and more about Finn using that as leverage to get off of the ship and far enough away and kind of come out with an idea or a plan where he can actually save Rey. Because you're right, that's his whole mission in this film,
Right.
is to save Rey, prevent the First Order from getting their hands on Rey.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's that transition too. When he says Rey, boom, we go into the last scene of The Force Awakens.
Yes, and we get that music too, right?
Yes.
Oh,
It's a big buildup. We've been waiting 2 years
years.
to see what is Luke gonna do when he gets the lightsaber. We talked about it on this podcast last week.
God.
Yeah.
We said, what's Luke gonna do? What's he gonna say? You know, this is an epic moment in cinema. This could rival the unmasking of Darth Vader. You know, like who Darth Vader turns out to be his dad. This could have been like epic. And so we're all on the edge of our seats.
Pins and needles.
Oh man.
Oh, you got that feeling in the pit of your stomach. Like, I was here, one of the first people to see this. And then what happens?
Throws it.
He throws it
That's a no-look pass to the
away.
cliff. Oh my god. So again, I'm coming off the heels of Finn. I'm like, okay, we're back. This movie's on the right track.
Yeah.
And he just tosses the lightsaber. Like, what? Put some respect in that name. that's Anakin. That's Anakin Skywalker's lightsaber. You know, like you can't do that.
Oh, you must, like,
Can't do
Anakin's
that.
your boy.
That's-
He disrespected his
There's
father's lightsaber.
heritage, you know, to that lightsaber. Maz, you know, talks about the lightsaber. There's a connection with Rey and that lightsaber. There's so much that goes down with this lightsaber. It gets destroyed anyways. But Luke just tosses it out, and I'm like, and you know, it's not even a matter of like it wasn't like they didn't do my theory or your theory or your theory. It's nothing to do with that. It's just the fact that they put zero effort into this. There's been a build up this whole scene, and he just tosses it. He could have done anything. He could have even thrown it in front of him and with like some disgust, and I would have been like okay with that. But the fact that he just threw it, he hasn't seen the thing since Bespin. Man, killed me.
That was probably the scene in this film that bothered me the most.
Yeah.
I really still, even on second viewing, struggle with that reaction. Like, if you remember to the end of The Force Awakens, we waited for 2+ hours to see Luke Skywalker. Every time something big in the Force happened, like when that lightsaber flew past Kylo
Oh,
and into Rey's hands, I thought that was going to be Luke Skywalker
Yeah.
in The Force Awakens standing on the side of that. So we'd been waiting for a long time for the resolution of this scene, and I felt very underwhelmed by the delivery of it. And even second viewing, I'm seeing a lot of things that maybe I struggled with a little bit on my first viewing. They had really come to light and really come to fruition. I really saw the driving point behind Rian Johnson's direction there. But this, I still don't understand why it was treated this
Yeah.
way. And that comes back to some of the respect for the franchise. I'm not saying that Rian Johnson is disrespecting it, but at the same time, if this was coming and J.J. Abrams had returned, this wouldn't have been like this.
No.
And I was looking for just more of, I think, what you were, like this idea that there was some respect there, there's a legacy to it, and to just say and look even at her and say, like, say something, like,
Yes.
who are you? And why are you here?
Right.
How did you find me? And why are you bringing me
Yeah.
this?
That's a very valid point. Like, who is this lady?
Yeah. Like,
where'd you get this?
like, and he says, I hid myself on the most unfindable place in the world or in the galaxy, and you seemingly show up with my father, my former lightsaber.
Yeah.
Like, that's the hardest part, the part I struggle with the most is like there's so much there, there's so much weight, or could have been so much weight to the scene, and it's kind of literally thrown away
Yeah.
the same way the lightsaber is.
Yeah.
That really bothers me. That's probably the scene in here that if I had to say, that I do not like, and I probably never will like, is that's how that's treated. Because, like you said, Sanjay, we've been waiting for 2 years for this to get resolution on what is his first words. And through the whole trailer, we're getting this idea that he's talking about the Jedi has to end. And you know where we're going into a Luke Skywalker that's broken down, that's busted, that is no longer relying on the Force, really, or has any connection to anything. You know, he's seen his Jedi school, his kind of heritage be burnt down to the ground. And with that goes his spirit. But at the same time, you're handed this lightsaber.
Yeah.
There needs to be a better reaction there. So I don't really like that.
Especially when he still has somewhat respect, at least for the books, at least until the point where he burns them down. So he still holds those.
Yeah.
But he gets this lightsaber, and he calls it I think he calls it a space
laser
sword.
A laser sword.
And I was like, what? Like, Rian Johnson has a problem in this movie where he tries to, he makes it feel like it's a parody of this world. Like for instance, when you hear like, I think Finn or Poe being like, blow down that big ass door, like that's just, I know it sounds kind of funny that I'm nitpicking this, but it sounds weird in a Star Wars world to hear someone say big ass door, or like to hear someone say like a laser sword. It's like, come on, man, it's a lightsaber. Like, you know that you used it the whole time. Like, you introduced the lightsaber to all of us here. That kind of stuff just really bothered me. And man, you know, you see Luke's face at the end of Force Awakens, and there's so much there that everybody froze in their brain forever. And you finally get the chance to deliver off of what JJ handed to you, and that's what he does. He throws it away, and like I said, and I still feel this way. I feel like that's Rian Johnson's mentality throughout this whole film. He's just throwing things away. He's doing it his way, and that's great because he's the director. But man, he took some risky steps, and they don't gel that well throughout the film for the most part.
This was a big miss.
Yeah, like the thing I could compare this to would be like if Captain America in the Avengers, once he gets unfrozen and they hand him his shield and he just tosses it over his shoulder. Like, that to me is like the same kind of, like, if he would have done that, whereas Captain America gets the shield, you know, and he's like, this is my shield.
Yeah.
Like, this is my weapon of choice, and he treats it with respect. And I have like this respect for the lightsaber because you said it's Anakin's and became Luke's, and then
you look at it even in the Force Awakens when it's handed to Rey. As soon as she touches it, like boom, 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 you get this Force back.
Yeah, we hear Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah,
we hear both Alec Guinness and Ewan McGregor.
Yeah, and Yoda.
And Yoda.
Yeah.
There's a lot that goes from Mustafar to that scene you just mentioned. Like, there's so much history with this lightsaber.
Yeah.
So do the Porgs get it because they're playing with it?
Force back. No, you could have utilized the scene like a Force back as well.
Yeah.
And having him, as soon as he touches it, you get like this force about like, and it could be a convenient way of telling a bit of a story within that, like what's gone on with this lightsaber, and kind of address some of those issues about how May's got it. Like, you know what I mean? It could have been a really effective way to kind of catch people up on a bit of the history of Luke Skywalker, where this light, or at least the lightsaber in itself.
Right.
And Luke's kind of getting all this, and you take that in, you see this really cool flashback, and then you step forward and he says, "Who are you?"
Yeah.
And maybe he hands it back to her,
man.
or something like that,
See,
right?
Would have loved that. Would have loved that.
That's such a good idea.
Yeah.
And have like a little like throwaway clip, like where it's like a, as you said, like the Force back.
Yeah, well, like even the Alec Guinness line, like you're taking your first steps, right? And it's something like that, or a connection. Like, we see Yoda show up later on in this film. I was really waiting for Obi-Wan.
I know.
For an Ewan McGregor, or what's his name that did the voice acting in Rebels. Off the top of my head, it's bothering me.
Sam something.
Yeah.
Sam Smith.
Sam Witter? No, he did Darth Maul.
Yeah.
What's that? Anyways, like they could have done something that where you had even a connection back to Obi-Wan, and you have a bit, because you were bringing that back, right? That idea of Force Ghost. We're gonna see Luke as a Force Ghost.
Yes.
In Episode 9 for sure.
Now more than ever, especially after Carrie Fisher.
You think so?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. After Carrie Fisher.
Is he 100% signed on, or?
I'm sure he's signed on for all three.
Yeah, I guarantee we're gonna see him before, anyways. But now that Carrie Fisher's passed, unfortunately, I'm pretty sure we're going to see more Force Ghost Luke. I would say you need a little bit more of him in there.
Oh, and I think that you have to do it that way. Like, he'd give himself to the Force the same way Obi-Wan did in A New Hope, and Obi-Wan showed up in Empire and Return of the Jedi, right? Yeah. So I think you're going to get basically Rey being trained in the same way, or at least led in the same way that Obi-Wan kind of directed Luke in Empire. Like, you must go to Dagobah. Yeah. There's a Jedi Master there.
Named Ahsoka.
Yeah. How sick would that be? No, but you're going to see him driving a bit of that, because now she's essentially the Last Jedi.
Well, we got Broom Boy.
Yeah, we got Broom Boy. But if she's the Last Jedi, she has the book, sure.
Yeah.
but she's bound to make the same mistakes Luke did, right?
Exactly.
And she's already shown a willingness to step a little bit further into the dark side.
Right.
And which is a really cool idea.
But I guess we'll get there, because I was lost. I was like, was that her or was that Snoke then? Because Snoke was controlling both her and Kylo at one point. Because there's a point in the film, like, whoa, Rey's pretty dark. Like, where'd that come from?
Yeah.
And you find out that that Snoke was controlling them the whole time. So I didn't know if that was.
But you get a little bit of that with her and Luke when he's he puts her on the rock and says, "Now reach out," and she's talking about the balance, right? She goes through the same sequence.
So Snoke's not controlling her at that point.
I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
I don't think that he ever is controlling her. I think he's providing a conduit for them to talk through the Force.
Okay.
Because Kylo makes a reference at one point, why is the Force wanting us to connect?
Right.
And it's Snoke providing that conduit, and they're just communicating through it.
Okay.
That would be
more
my
sense.
impression of it.
Okay.
Or that's how I took it.
Yeah.
But one of the big things with Luke Skywalker that a lot of the issues they're having is that we're going from the legend, the hero of the rebellion, someone that we've been waiting to see in this form for 2 years, for 40 years, for however long, right? And he's really reduced to the shell of a human and not really the portrayal that we're looking for. And I like, in part, the direction they go with Luke here. Maybe not this whole sequence about, we're laughing about this podcast, about kind of going through his daily routine and how he's kind of
What was up with that? Okay, like, that is just the most messed up scene I've ever seen. Like... So what the heck was that thing?
It's blue milk, right?
It's like
it's green, but
it was a reference to it.
It was like a 4-teat animal, like it was like a half camel kind of.
His face was priceless. I'm telling you, man. I didn't laugh at all in this film until I saw that scene, and I was dying because the look that he gives the audience gives Rey. Yeah. It's like a bitter beer face because he's drinking milk, and it's
but it's
so
almost
good.
like I can't believe I'm drinking this right now.
Yeah,
like unfermented or what had the pasteurized is the right word, not fermented. Unpasteurized milk from the sea creature.
Yeah, that also looks like Rey after. It kind of gives Rey the Mark Hamill face.
It's like,
too.
you want some? Yeah. They should have just been like straight from the teat. Like he didn't even need the bottle. He should have just like started sucking on the teat and then just looked at Rey, because like there's other ways to show you're a badass than just drinking green milk straight from the teat.
Straight up, just raw. I thought it was hilarious.
That's if I was, I don't know a lot of Star Wars as much as you two, but if I was a director of the film, I don't think I would have included that scene.
It's just a weird scene.
Like no one told the director while like they're in post, like, hey, like the scene where Luke's drinking that weird green milk, like maybe just cut it off. Like he spears the fish, yeah, cool. He jumps, he does all this cool shit. Like that's his daily routine. But the milk stuff, it's kind of like Mad Max, like Fury Road, with like the mother's milk and stuff. Yeah.
You know what's cool though? I guess the Legends of Luke. I think there was a reference about that spear. So when he goes around, he learns to on some planet how to catch fish with that massive spear. So
he's
that's
Green Arrow,
cool. But it's a legend, so we don't know. I guess this would make it canon. Because that book has some canon and some legends.
Yeah, that Canto Bight. No, the Legends of Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
Right? And then there's also this Canto Bight book that I haven't read yet, but it's... No. It's the Legends of Luke Skywalker. Because aren't the kids on the way to Canto Bight or something?
I don't know. These are just bits and pieces I read of the book, so I haven't...
Okay, I have to go back. Anyways, it doesn't really matter at this point.
So, sorry, Canto Bight. That's the Vegas?
That's Casino City,
yeah.
When they had that scene... when they're like going around, did you for a second think they were going to be pod racing?
Would be a cool reference.
I don't know. Are we going there right now?
I don't even know.
Let's finish the discussion of Luke Skywalker, because there's a lot of big elements here.
So would you try that green milk?
Never. Now, if there's like a thing at the Disneyland where you can go up and like milk the sea creature,
and they'll frame your face, like give us a Mark Hamill face. I want that in the steelbook.
That should be the cover of the steelbook.
I'm gonna like get the green beard.
Yeah.
Got milk?
Yeah.
They're gonna bring it back. That whole ad campaign with like the green mustaches now.
Make it into a coaster.
St. Patty's Day. St. Patty's Day. We should all have green milk.
That's happening. Next podcast, I'm like green milk for you boys. Some of the big things that we get here from Luke, he's very reluctant or refused at all to train Rey. He's disconnected from the Force, and Rey calls him out for that directly. You are no longer communing with the Force. You're not one with it anymore. You are Jedi Master Luke Skywalker. Like, what's going on? The Resistance needs you. And he outright refuses, even with Chewie coming and revealing to him that Han Solo has died, which is something that I thought was going to be used as one of the pivot points.
Yeah.
For Luke Skywalker. I had always expected him to become this hermit, someone that is disconnected, almost taking the bearish vow that we're seeing from the Darth Vader comic books, and says, I'm no longer able to fight because I've taken this vow.
I would love that.
I've removed myself, and this is something that Mark had pushed over at TSW quite a bit. He had removed himself from the battle because of his failures. He's put himself into self-exile because of that, because he allowed Ben to fall to the dark side, and that eventually led to the dismantling of his school and the death of all these children. Because that was the first thing, or one thing I didn't notice on the first viewing, is when you look at when he's standing there with R2, there's all these kids that are dead in the front. I didn't get that the first time.
But he also did take some of them with him, which we assume would be the Knights of Ren.
Yes.
They mentioned that he took a couple kids. Which,
there's him and his disciples. They never really address the
Where
Knights
are
of
they?
Ren.
no mention.
Yeah.
What's going on?
So
Yeah.
there's a lot of things that they do leave dangling, which I think Abrams is going to pick up. And I think the Knights of Ren coming back, if they're not the Praetorian Guards that they dismantled, which they didn't really seem like they were, the Knights of Ren coming back in 9 could be a big thing with Kylo Ren taking up the mantle of Supreme Leader. He needs his boys around him, right? So
apprentice.
It's going to be really cool to see him pulling back on these characters, which, whether they're the acolytes or some sort of apprentices, or what are they? Inquisitors. Thank you. I get all these things in my head. But I see them kind of more in that light.
Yeah.
And that him taking on that role that we're seeing Vader take on in the Vader comics right now with the Inquisitors themselves, right? And just using them as his own proxy, his own kind of militia to do his work, his bidding for him.
Yes.
I think that'd be really cool in episode 9. I'm kind of glad. I would have liked to maybe a nod to them, but I think this movie is full enough that we didn't need kind of the Knights of Ren coming in unless they were going to come in place of the Praetorian Guards, or they were actually the Praetorian Guards themselves.
That's right. Yeah. Again, kind of like the Han Solo treatment. Like, I didn't need a full scene of them, but I want some kind of acknowledgement of them, that they are around and currently around, right? Because we did get that Force vision, where did that take place?
Yeah.
That whole scene.
The what?
The vision with Kylo Ren and the Knights of Ren.
Yeah, and it's raining, and they're all standing there.
Right? It's not in the future, because he wouldn't be using that helmet.
Well, then Snoke in The Force Awakens says, you're the leader of the Knights of Ren.
Exactly.
Right? He makes a direct reference to it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's kind of cool.
Continuing on with Luke, I don't know if you guys heard any of the interviews or you stayed away from Mark Hamill.
I know where you're going.
When he first read the script, did you hear this?
Yeah. He was like, I don't really necessarily agree, I think, with the direction they're going with the character, and I could feel that. I don't know if it's because I read that too, but I could see where Mark Hamill's coming from. Yeah. Right? Because like I said, the first viewing I didn't really like at all where they went with Luke. I grew to like it more now, but I still think they could have gone a different route, like what you mentioned with the character in the Vader comic.
Yeah.
Who's kind of been exiled off, right? Because Yoda made a little bit more sense, because at least you knew eventually Yoda was going to train one of the twins. Yeah. Right? He didn't really give up, even though he knew his failures as well. He handled it differently than
he kind of just went a little crazy.
He went a little crazy, yeah. Kind of like even like Obi-Wan as well. Yeah. But Luke is a little different. He just disconnected himself and kind of gave up. And I'm like, well, man, Rey mentions that you defeated Sidious, you brought light to Vader, you did all these things. Failing Kylo Ren is kind of like something underneath all those things, right? It's kind of below all that. It's kind of like an easy fix.
But some of it though is his failure isn't necessarily because, like in the sense with Vader, with Anakin and Obi-Wan, he was pushed there by an external factor, by Palpatine, and you get a bit of that with Snoke and Kylo Ren, right, or Ben Solo at the time. But the driving factor, the driving force behind Ben's real swing, is that momentary lapse of judgment by Luke Skywalker. Right. This is another big issue that people have, is him wanting to stand up and strike down Kylo Ren in a moment of weakness. Yeah. And some of that I get, because I would say that Luke Skywalker and he talks about the hubris, right? The overconfidence of the Jedi. And maybe you get a bit of that. You maybe a little bit in Luke Skywalker, in that he mentions it. I was the legendary Luke Skywalker. I was the one that took down the first, he doesn't say this directly, but took down the first Death Star. Rey mentions those things about Vader and all that.
Insidious, all that.
Insidious. But maybe it was his own hubris. He kind of projected that onto the Jedi. Their overconfidence led to their ultimate demise. Yeah. Maybe that's reflected a bit in Luke Skywalker as well, is that his ultimate overconfidence in the fact that he was the legendary Luke Skywalker, the hero of the rebellion. He was the one meant to take the Jedi into a new generation. Maybe that is what led him to failing, is that he saw the dark side rising and really didn't know how to deal with it any other way.
Right.
And he had this momentary lapse in judgment. I like to use a nice reference to it's a kind of like a fleeting shadow, in and out. And it was that moment that changed Kylo Ren, that forced him into or over to the dark side, I think.
Yeah, because he mentions it, right? I think he says the Jedi at their peak is when the dark side rose, right?
Yeah.
And then that's kind of like mirrors Luke. Luke at his peak is when he basically failed Kylo Ren. But it's weird because I'm pretty sure, I think it's either, I always get this mixed up with his Bloodlines or your book, Aftermath. I thought they mentioned that Snoke has kind of been shadowing Ben for quite some time.
I don't know.
He's always kind of been like a little bit of a presence. Right?
I don't remember that in either of those books, but that there was, I think there was like this internal struggle within Leia.
Or Leia could feel it or something.
Yeah,
right?
that there's a bit of light side and a bit of dark side, this tendency towards one or the other.
Right.
And that was the same way with Anakin, right? He always had a tendency towards one way or the other.
Yeah.
And it's just how he got pushed into that.
Yeah.
Sidious led him into the dark side. Mm-hmm. And I think Kylo Ren was pushed into the dark side.
Well, yeah, because Anakin, you can always see the struggle of like, he questioned the way the world was run, right?
Yeah.
And he always kind of felt for the little people, right? And he always wanted to save life. You know, he failed his mom, so he wanted to like save Padme, right? So it's basically, you know, restoring life is the biggest thing, I think, is the Plagueis story that Sidious mentions. But whereas Kylo Ren, like you mentioned, so you think Kylo Ren's, you know, struggle or his step into the dark side is the failure of Luke?
I like, and that's like Rey calls that out in the film, right? She says, you know, you didn't fail Ben failed you.
Yes.
I'm not sure I'm fully on board with that.
Right.
Because I think it's that momentary lapse in judgment that actually pushes Kylo to the dark side, right? That's what leads to the downfall of the new Jedi Order, is that one moment. Would that maybe have eventually happened anyways?
Right.
That's quite possible. Mm-hmm. But it was definitely amplified and pushed forward by that judgment call by Luke Skywalker.
Right.
I like the story too because it's told two different ways, and then it's three, and then you finally get the actual answer, which is a kind of a combination of both.
Of both, yeah.
You see Kylo tell the story, and you're like, that's not true at all.
Yeah.
And you see Luke tell the story, and there's no lightsabers really, right? It's actually Kylo that pulls the lightsaber first, and Luke Luke responds, and then it gets pulled down.
Yeah.
And then it's somewhere in between there, right? And this goes back to this theme of balance. You see two extremes, more of a dark side take, a light side take, but it's actually the balance, the middle that actually happened, where it's that lapse in judgment of Luke Skywalker, but it's also the tendency that Kylo had been, like I'm going to say, he was pulled by Snoke, it appears. He had a tendency towards the dark side, but he was pushed. Obi-Wan never pushed, I don't think, Anakin to the dark side, his main mentor.
Right.
But Luke seemingly has done that, and I think that's why he's put himself into this exile. Less so than Yoda. He was defeated by Sidious, and he put himself into self-exile because he felt that was the only way that the Order could survive, could progress.
Right.
Where Luke did this because I think he feels responsible for the rise of the dark side and ultimately the First Order.
See, and that's the interesting thing, because with Rian Johnson, again, going back to him, you know, the storytelling that he did overall, like, especially what you just mentioned, how he captured it, it's great, but it's also at the sacrifice of the character of Luke, because when it's all said and done, it's just not something that Luke would have done. But the overall story is great, but it seems out of character for Luke to even, for a moment, think to strike down his nephew.
Is that a headcanon thing, though? Yeah. Is that something that we've built Luke up to this level? Because I questioned it at first, too. Like, is this something that Luke Skywalker would have done? Why isn't it? He gave in to that hate and that anger at the end of Revenge of the...
He threw away the lightsaber, though, right?
Yeah.
He had a chance to do it, and he's like, I won't do it. And he threw away his lightsaber, and that's against the most evil person in the galaxy. Darth Sidious, right?
Yeah.
And then here he is. He has some kind of glimmer, and he's like, picks up the lightsaber.
You're done.
He's like, wait. You weren't going to do this to Sidious? But you're gonna,
well, no wonder why he went to the dark side. Like, if my teacher tried to kill me, I'd be, you know what? Screw the Jedi. I'm going to the dark side, you know? Like, I don't blame Kylo Ren.
Well, yeah, in that case, but overall, exactly what you said. Like, I feel like the story, what he presented here, was really cool. I feel like we lost a bit of Luke because of that.
Yeah. So it's the story. You got the sacrifice of Luke.
Yes.
To progress the overall narrative and the overall story.
Yeah.
And I think, to me, is that a worthy sacrifice? I don't know.
Right.
Because Kylo Ren and Rey are fantastic in this. Ren in particular, his struggle and Adam Driver's acting is awesome in this. Great. And some of that requires Luke to make that sacrifice.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And could you have gotten the same character development out of Kylo Ren in the absence of the Luke story? Probably not.
Yeah.
You may have been able to approach it slightly differently, but at the same time, I don't love the idea that Luke had that lapse in judgment.
Yeah.
But I kind of like it from the perspective of that Luke is, we always see him as this huge this hero, right?
Yeah.
But he's somewhat of a flawed hero at the same time.
For sure. But then I feel like we also lose something here with Kylo. Again, going back to The Force Awakens, I know we're spending some time on this, but I guess it's important. But when you go back to Force Awakens, Kylo Ren is a Vader fanboy, basically, right? He's doing all this, and you just think, okay, he's just following his father's or his grandfather's footsteps. And then in Bloodline, the big reveal was nobody knew that Leia's dad, real biological father, was Darth Vader.
Yeah.
And I think she was worried that the fact Kylo Ren would find this out. So I always figured that it was that reveal which really turned him to the dark side, is knowing that, hey, my dad or my grandfather was the Dark Lord Vader. So I always thought that's what it was. I didn't really necessarily know it was this other subplot story between Luke, whipping out his laser sword.
But I think but I think there was always a tendency there, right?
Yeah.
That maybe that was what maybe started it.
Right.
And then he was slowly pulled there by Snoke and then pushed to the other side.
Right. So a mix of things.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a combination.
Yeah.
Because the one thing that differs between Anakin and Kylo is that when you look at Revenge of the Sith, you can see that natural progression to the dark side by Anakin.
Yes.
Like, I think the portrayal is really good there. Kylo is always struggling, and that's what I like about this character. And I don't want to see a redemptive arc.
Right.
But even when he takes out Snoke and he kind of deems himself the supreme leader, and you see him firing on Luke there, he still doesn't seem like the supreme leader, right? He seems like a child still, trying to get back at his parents.
Yes. Yeah. And that bothers me, because when you have you now essentially you have to put Kylo Ren in the same level or leadership as Palpatine, as Snoke, and he's not even at Tarkin level. No. At the end of the film, he's still pretty whiny. At the end of the film, he has the option to confront Luke right away, and the first thing he does is, I want every laser on that guy. And I'm like, what? No way. Like, no other Sith. I know he's not a Sith, but no other, Jedi or Sith would miss that opportunity to fight their opponent hand to hand or lightsaber to lightsaber. It just that was weird for me. And that point right there, I was like, and Adam Driver's doing an incredible job portraying Kylo Ren, but I just felt like that isn't the leader that we should have for the First Order.
Yeah, like Adam Driver, terrific actor, and he's portraying Kylo Ren terrifically. But going into Episode 9, he doesn't give you that sense of dread that Darth Vader... No, the next one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so going into Episode 9, he doesn't give you that sense of dread that Darth Vader is this, like, impossible, badass bad guy that you just can't defeat. Kylo Ren's been defeated several times already. Yeah. Like, we've seen Rey. They mention it in the film. Snoke says she beat you and she never even picked up a lightsaber before.
Finn got a hit on him.
Finn, yeah.
Right?
And it's like Darth Vader was insane. Like, his power levels, and just he's the best looking bad guy I think we've ever gotten in cinema.
For sure.
Darth Vader, that look is just perfected.
Yeah.
And Kylo Ren, he has a pretty good look too, but he doesn't, like, as soon as he took off the mask, it kind of, like, some of that mystique went away. I think they should have kept that mask on, and he even gets rid of the mask in this movie.
It's called it by Snoke.
Yeah, it's called it by Snoke, aka Ryan Johnson. Take that ridiculous thing off here.
But it's so badass, and his voice. His voice was so cool. Like, I love, like, the weird voices. Like, Darth Vader had a great voice. Bane has a great voice. Kylo Ren had a great voice. Yeah. Not no more. He took off that mask, and that voice is gone, and it was so intimidating, that voice, when, like this music kind of went away and you got this like this voice that was just like, I don't want to fuck with this guy. No. Now I'd fuck with him. Like, what's he gonna do? Like, Kylo Ren doesn't scare me.
I like the mask, but I'd much prefer, at least for this character, I like it off, because it allows Adam Driver to explore that emotion in a bit more depth.
Totally.
Like, it's hard with Vader. You get that sense throughout that he's kind of struggling a little bit with some of the decisions, and you get that a lot in the comic books, right? Because they have the ability, that artistic liberty, to kind of give you some of that emotion.
Yeah.
But Kylo Ren, you didn't get the same emotion behind the mask that you do with Adam Driver's facial expressions, the way he's reacting things, overreacting to things. You see that in The Force Awakens as well. It's a very unstable, and it's still a young character.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I like about it. It's we're going into a different direction, and maybe that's where the death of Snoke it was very abrupt and very crazy that happened. But you almost needed that character to keep check with Kylo Ren. Because if you're going to have him leading now, it's very hard, right? Because you've got Hux and Kylo Ren as the leader of the First Order. That's a kind of a shaky leadership, right?
Definitely.
You don't have that foundation of a Leia, of someone bigger, right? Of an Akbar, or like you said, a Tarkin.
Right. Well, it'd be essentially like having a Tarkin and a Krennic ruling the Empire. You'd have those two, going back to Catalyst.
Those are more believable.
And those are more believable, exactly. But you'd have those two constantly trying to battle each other, right? But yeah, those two would definitely be more accountable. To do it. So
going back to Snoke and the death of Snoke, this movie is probably one of the most beautiful movies I've ever seen. Like this looks like a comic book brought to life. Like some of the images and the angles and the lighting and the use of color.
Beautiful. The cinematography.
This cinematography should win best in the Oscars. And if it doesn't, then that's crazy.
I gotta see Blade Runner.
Oh man, coming out in 2 weeks. Coming out in 2 weeks, and we can have a big Blade Runner discussion.
Nice.
But that throne room of Snoke with the red, and then you had those like guards in the background. Oh,
the poses that they came out too. Oh,
wow,
yes.
Blew me away. Like I can see Rian Johnson probably pitched like those pictures and like storyboards, and I could see how they would have been like lured to the dark side to turn of Reyes to go with him, because this is like this is the most beautiful Star Wars film I've ever seen. This could maybe even be the most beautiful movie I've ever seen. Like, I'm a big visual guy. It's the reason why I like Zack Snyder, and this guy, like, he channeled his inner Zack Snyder, because like it looks beautiful. No one, even if you didn't like the movie, no one can argue that this film didn't look beautiful.
It looks great. I still, in some ways, would give it to Rian Johnson a little bit. And like you mentioned when we talked about Rogue One, the scale of
Gareth Edwards.
Well, Rogue One, but Gareth Edwards. What did I say? Did I say Rian Johnson?
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. So yeah, going back to Gareth Edwards, but Rogue One.
Yeah.
The scale of things was just incredible in that film, and the planets. I still would give it a little bit to Rogue One, but I do like. I don't know which one I like between the two, but I see what you guys are saying.
Yeah, it's beautifully shot film.
Yeah, definitely.
So going back to some of the concepts here, before we haven't even talked about Rey, and we're already an hour and 15 minutes in, but we will get to her in a second here. Some of the concepts here that we got to talk about a little bit more detail is the idea of the Force. Now that's explored, broken down, like I said, literally burnt down to a degree, the idea of it, the idea of the Jedi themselves. And one of the things that struck me, and we talked about this before we recorded a little bit, about the idea that it's called a religion. And we see some of that in Rogue One, the
Chirrut and Baze.
Yeah, Chirrut and Baze, the Church of the Wills.
Wills, yeah.
And you had mentioned that in I think the Death Star scene in
episode 4
and A New Hope, they talk about it being no one subscribes to this religion anymore, and Han Solo calls it a hokey religion.
Yeah.
And to me, I always took that as the perspective of people that weren't in tune with the Force, that were, you look at the military power of Krennic and Tarkin, and that they took things from a very scientific perspective. You look at Han, who didn't really believe in anything until he kind of reveals that, it's all true in The Force Awakens. So when I'm looking at that, it's people from the outside seeing this as this crazy, hokey religion. But to have Luke call it right out a religion, that kind of threw me off a bit. I always saw it not so much as a religion, because I see religion as something that's very prescribed in nature. And maybe that's what Luke's getting at, is that it was indeed more of a religion because it had these very black and white, these hard boundaries, no emotions, no attachments. And that maybe is more the prescriptive nature of a religion. And that's why he referred to it as that, because he makes direct reference that was ultimately their downfall. It's a legacy of failure.
Right.
And I thought that whole sequence there was really, really well done, with the explanation of the Force and why the Jedi had to end, and why he no longer wanted to push forward with developing a new Jedi Order. It was because they're inherently flawed in their ideas, and the idea that it's so black and white, so binary. And Rian Johnson does a really great job, I think. You're breaking it all down and saying, we're kind of in the middle with a lot of this. You see Rey and Kylo adopting both sides. Like Rey, when she's fighting in Snoke's throne room, there's a lot of aggression there, a lot of yelling. It's not really a defensive art that you're seeing with her fighting. It's a really aggressive art and pushing the limits. Like, she's pushing the limits of Kylo Ren here. Yeah. And some of the stuff that they do in there, incredible. But what did you think of this development of the Force and how it ultimately affects Rey's perception of it?
Well, yeah, I think it makes sense. You going back to the religion comment. What's his name? I think Max Valentino's character from Force Awakens. I forgot his name.
Yeah.
Shoot, I forgot his name. But he's with
Oh,
Poe in the
yeah.
comics too.
Man, we're terrible with names.
I know.
You guys call yourself Star Wars fans? Like,
Lord Santeca.
Lord Santeca. Well, I believe him and Luke went on some adventures.
Yeah.
I thought they did. So he seems someone that's very, with the Church of the Force. So it kind of makes sense that him and Luke would adopt that name or use that a little bit more so. But all in all, yeah, I really do like what Rian Johnson did with the whole Force.
Shifting
it a little bit. I thought that was pretty cool, and and it shows at the times too, because when you go back to the Star Wars way back, I didn't come from that era, but things were very black and white. There's good, there's bad. So when we saw the Imperials, when we saw Darth Vader, it was just bad. There was no other story behind it. They were just bad. The Force was good if you're a Jedi, and it was bad if you're a Sith. But now if you look at the times, we need more development with the bad guys, right? We need to know that maybe the bad guys aren't really bad. They just see things differently than how we see them. And that kind of makes sense for the times now, that the Force isn't necessarily used in that way what we used to see it back then. So I kind of like what they did now, how it's developed that way.
wasn't the Force? I don't know if this is true or not, but it was some sort of like thing you're born with, like midichlorians or something. Yeah, like wasn't
really veered away from that.
They went away from that.
So it was more like the metachlorian count they're trying to science it up, kind of give it to some biology that you had a higher metachlorian count, you had more of an ability to control the Force.
And Anakin, because the rumor was that he's made up of Metachlorians, because supposedly Plagueis created him.
Yeah.
With all that, but as Anakin lost more of his limbs, then he had to lose more of the counts.
But Troy, your comment there about the times and how it's changing, we're not as black and white as we were before, and it's very true, because Luke also makes a comment in here that I really liked about the Force not belonging to the Jedi. It belongs to everything.
Yes.
It's all encompassing. They don't have the exclusive rights or the monopoly to it to control and say how it shouldn't be used. And sometimes it comes down to perspective. Yes, there's inherently bad people in the Star Wars universe. You take Tarkin or Krennic. These people, Palpatine, these people had very bad intentions. But then you also look from the perspective of some of these other characters. You take Count Dooku, maybe even Anakin to a degree. He had a different perspective on things, and sometimes that's a hard thing to shift around and focus. Is that Darth Vader is a bad person, was a bad character for everything he did, particularly when he slayed all those children. But you look at
they had it coming.
But you look at it from a perspective issue, and sometimes that's where there's a difference, is that from the perspective of one person, they think they're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And the other perspective is also they think they're doing the right thing, and that's often what leads to conflict.
Right.
And you need that in characters. You need both sides to think that they're right, to have a valid conflict. Yes. Otherwise, you have no reason for people to be pursuing some end goal if they don't think they're right.
And that's what always leads ultimately to the best villains, the ones that you can believe what they were doing is actually good. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's where Kylo Ren, that's why I love the character development in this, is that he's struggling with the idea of what he's doing is right. He thinks it's right, or he thinks that's the way he should be doing things. But then you see these glimmers of light where when he takes out Snoke, maybe in particular, fights alongside Rey, really wants to pull her into the idea of what he is doing, the way he wants to rule and control the Force is the right way. The interesting thing is he never calls himself or never refers to himself as a Sith.
Yeah.
But Rey refers to herself or wants to be a Jedi, refers to Luke as a Jedi. We never get a master apprentice feel in the Sith sense, this rule of two. Yeah. And we're going to see how that maybe develops into episode 9 within Kylo Ren and Snoke. Like, you never get that feeling that it's a master and apprentice in the same way that Palpatine was the Sith master to an apprentice of Darth Vader.
That's right, yeah, because we still haven't officially had Sith yet, even still going with Snoke, because he never, claimed to be a Sith himself. And an ultimate Sith, obviously, they'd have the yellow eyes and whatnot, and we've never seen those eyes occur with Snoke or Kylo, right?
No.
Yeah.
Were you guys disappointed in Snoke's death and the fact that we never found out who he is or if he's like any relation to anyone?
Yeah, I was disappointed by that, because again, there was kind of a build-up of that character, and going back to what we just mentioned about good villains and whatnot, and then you kill off this villain just like that, then kind of made him pointless. Who was this character the whole time that had all this power? I mean, this guy used the Force from how many ships away on Hux? he's clearly a powerful character.
Yeah.
He telegraphed pretty much everything what he's gonna do, and he got taken out by Kylo Ren without sensing the whole time the lightsaber was turning.
That is so good.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was an awesome death. It kind of feels like something you should have saw in episode 9 as opposed to episode 8, which is a little weird. But I just feel like we kind of need to know where this character's been the whole time, somewhat.
I think this is screaming for like a comic book or a novelization or something like that.
Yeah.
But the way I look at it, and the perspective I was shocked when I saw it.
Oh yeah.
But I thought it was a great way for Kylo, for Adam Driver's character Ben Solo, to progress.
Definitely.
And the thing I liked about it, and kind of how I liken it, is to the Emperor. We didn't really get a lot of him. Nothing in A New Hope. We get a hint of him in Empire, and we get the big reveal in Return of the Jedi, and we spend a bit of time with him, and then he's chucked into a hole by Darth Vader. And we never really know where this character is or has come from. Why is he the most powerful Sith in the galaxy? Why is he the ruler of Darth Vader? And then he's dead. It's not until we go back to the prequels that we actually get the backstory. So my hope is that eventually with Snoke, we get a backstory to him, whether it's in other films or other media. But I wasn't as off-put by the idea that we didn't get that same Snoke reveal we were expecting.
Yeah.
It will come. It will factor into stories later on. Mm-hmm. And I think for the character progression of Kylo Ren, that needed to happen. And the way that it did happen was brilliant. I kind of took this as, why didn't Snoke see the lightsaber? Because in Kylo's head, he was reading Kylo's mind. And Kylo had that lightsaber in his hand, looking like he was going to strike down Rey.
Right.
And he's saying he's going to take out his true enemy. Well, his true enemy wasn't Rey. His true enemy was Snoke.
Right.
He read the mind of Kylo Ren, thinking that and kind of projecting that he was thinking about Rey, but he was actually thinking about Snoke.
Right.
He kind of was blinded to that aspect of it. And when he dies, awesome. Loved it.
That was pretty
falls into
crazy.
pieces.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy.
I was floored. I was, to be honest with you, you mentioned his power set.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Like one of the most powerful Force users we've ever seen.
Right.
He's done amazing things.
Yeah.
I thought he was just going to come right back together. I
That's
honestly
That'd
God
been cool.
thought that his body was just going to slam back
thought
together and he's
so.
going to stand up and just swipe them both.
I thought so.
That would have been cool.
I thought so.
I would have
That would've
preferred
been
that.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could keep him for episode 9, as you said. Like, get rid of him. This seems like something that should have been saved until the finale. Because
Well, the hardest part about episode 9 is going to be what we had already talked about, right? How you have Hux and Kylo Ren being the leaders of the First Order. They don't seem like capable leaders.
it should be a buddy comedy.
Yeah, well, we may see some other military mind rise.
Yeah.
Or maybe like a Thrawn type character, right? Coming to the forefront and taking the military end of it, where you see Kylo Ren he's using the First Order more as a kind of a personal army to get through his demons. Like the next demon he has to get through is Leia.
Well, see, and that's the thing, because I'm lost in his motivations. As great as Adam Driver's been, this whole thing, what motivates him to do exactly what he's doing? Like, what's his end game? Like, what is it?
Rule the galaxy?
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Because
I
it started off, you said, like, impressing his grandfather, or living up to that lineage. And now
that's what I thought.
Yeah.
That's what I would have thought at one point.
And now it's kind of like rule the galaxy. But I could see that.
Yeah.
It's almost like it needs a bit of clarity there, because you know the struggle.
Yes, you know the struggle
of Kylo Ren.
You can see it,
and it's really well portrayed. But you're right. What is that end game? What is he after once Luke's dead?
Right.
Once Leia's dead? Like, what is he after? Is he after for supremacy, ruling the galaxy with an iron fist, or is he interested in recreating some sort of order of Jedi or something different, of Knights of Ren?
Right.
I really don't know. Like, Palpatine craved power.
Yeah.
Darth Vader was looking for, again, that power, but
an
order within kind of the galaxy itself, right?
Yeah.
He saw, if you look back into the politics of the prequel trilogy, he saw in a very different light from Padme how the galaxy should be run, more of an autocratic society.
Yeah.
And Kylo is, you're right, he's just kind of there. You get Hux's kind of general motivations. He feels very much like a young Nazi, to be honest with you.
And his dad was
one of the leaders.
A captain or a general.
Yeah, he was kind of one of the guys that trained the initial army coming out of Aftermath.
Right.
For the First Order.
Right.
Like these kids that he'd kind of brought up. He was in charge of indoctrinating kids that they kind of just stole from parents.
So that would make sense to see where he came from, right?
Yeah, so he's seeing that as he's a very twisted individual. Where Kylo, yeah, you're right, his motivations are a bit ill-defined, I would say.
Right.
I think we will get some definition in episode 9.
Yeah.
But at the moment, it seems to be, let's take out all of my family, and then we'll go from there.
Right.
And a character that we haven't even touched on here, and I don't think we're going to get to everything here in this episode. We may have to take this for the part 1. Is Rey.
Yeah.
And to me, this movie, coming into it, I thought this is going to be Rey's big movie. To me, she gets a lot to do here, but not nearly as much as Kylo and Luke.
Yeah.
We see this really cool force power between the two of them, between Kylo Ren and Rey. We see her kind of convince Luke eventually to begin to train her. Some really cool action sequences with her with a lightsaber. But to me, the big thing in here is her communications with Kylo Ren, the exchange that they have.
Yeah.
I really, really liked how they're able to do that and not force them together in a way where they're teaming up. They're kind of communing to one another, telling each other stories. Kylo Ren seems to have the upper hand to some degree. He seems to be doing more of the manipulating. Because Rey seems to have this air of innocence to her at the same time. As she's talking to Luke, no, you're Master Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be the great hero of the rebellion. And we need you to stop the First Order in its track. It's an evil that is being spread throughout the galaxy. She has this innocence to her still. And I like that portrayal of Rey and that kind of juxtaposition against Kylo Ren, the more seasoned kind of master manipulator within the Force.
Yeah.
Do you think her and Kylo Ren are going to hook up?
No, I don't.
No, especially at the way this movie ended, I would say no.
No chance?
No.
Well,
They don't need to go down the path of love interest or anything like that. There's a very deep connection between the two. It's almost like two sides of the same coin to me. It is the balance. You see this again through and through this film, this theme of balance. And when Rey's sitting up there with Luke Skywalker and he's kind of tickling her fingers with the grass and all that, kind of funny. But she's talking, like she rhymes off numerous things. And her and Kylo are very much kind of the center, the focal point of this balanced theme.
Yeah.
Is that they both want kind of the same thing, but at the end of the day, they're approaching at it from very different angles. And we had talked about, would we see one or the other flip? The speculation that Rey could go dark. And Luke really hones in on that at the start, saying, you didn't even push the dark away. You just kind of embrace it and let it happen.
Right.
And so he sees a lot of that in Ben Solo. So he has quite an abrupt reaction to that. But at the same time, you see her adopting both sides. You see Kylo Ren adopting both sides. And you see where the connection could go much deeper.
Yes.
And that's why I like both of those characters. And that's why I really like Rey here. She's a lot more innocent.
Yeah.
And she seems to almost be the audience's perspective on everything. We're coming in being like, no, it's Master Luke Skywalker.
That's right.
Like, this is who you're supposed to be. Han Solo died. The Han Solo died. You don't even care.
Yeah, she's speaking for the audience.
Yeah, she's very much the audience perspective on all this. And that's why I like the character and I like how Daisy Ridley does in this.
Yeah, no, she's great. I still do prefer her more in Force Awakens, but again, I don't feel like this one's her film as much. I feel like Force Awakens is more of her film as opposed to this one.
Kylo's film.
I'd say so. I'd say it's more Kylo's and Luke's. I still wish Luke got a little bit more in there, but Daisy Ridley's great. I really like what she does in this film, and from the combat skills, and like you mentioned, her innocence, and she opens another door to her acting chops is when we get to see a little bit of that darkness in her, because we never saw that at all in the last movie. She's very to the book. She's really good. Here we do see a little bit of that darkness, and I appreciate it. I didn't care much though for her like Michael Jackson mirror fingers kind of scene. That was kind of a throwaway to me. Is I could see they're trying to do the Dagobah. Luke looks at Vader and he sees himself in the Vader. They're kind of playing around that, but it didn't really work for me.
Yeah, like Daisy Ridley was great. I think she's a terrific actress. This is the only stuff I've seen her in. I don't even know if she's been in anything else, but I think
Murder on the Orient Express.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I think she's got a long career ahead of her. I think
sure.
she's going to do terrific in Hollywood and all that. I think Rey, the biggest thing when we talk about Rey that we have to mention is her parents.
Oh.
And the fact that, we were speculating who are her parents. Are they anyone? Are they no one? Well, I guess they're no one.
Are they?
Well, Kylo could be lying, right?
Yeah.
Could be lying. But for me, this was probably the biggest letdown of the film. I know a lot of people have been saying, well, not just me, but in general, well, no one asked you to speculate. Well, if you go back to Force Awakens, Maz Kanata asks Han, so who's the girl? And they literally cut away from that scene, leaving the whole audience to speculate. So
that makes sense, right?
They did open that door. They opened that window. And I do feel like it was a missed opportunity here, because I think out of anything that the general audience was banking on is we're going to get the reveal of whose Rey's parents are. Now, it didn't have to be Obi-Wan. It didn't have to be Luke or anything like that, but it should have been something more than throwaway parents that were drunks and whatnot.
Junkers.
And like you mentioned, Kylo Ren very well could be lying, and JJ could come in and correct that. I hope on everything that he does do that, but I felt like that was just such a waste. I felt like almost Rian Johnson was like, I have no idea. I have no idea who her parents are, so I'm just going to put in these two no names.
Well, it's kind of like, because J.J. Abrams also did Lost.
Yeah.
And
that's a great setup.
Great. I haven't seen the series, but a lot of the people who didn't like it said, like, he set up all these, like, red herrings and all these, stuff that you theorize about what they were, but then he set it up so much that nothing could live up to the hype.
Yeah, because I believe he left the show, so he didn't even get to really finish that.
Oh, okay.
No, and it's the same scenario, right? He set up a lot of the original stuff, and then he was developed by someone else.
Yeah.
So why didn't they bring him back for the second one? It seems kind of strange that Force Awakens such a big hit. Most people, I think, much better, well received than this one from fans.
It seems that way.
Why didn't they just say, you know what, you're doing the whole trilogy because what's his name? James Gunn is doing Guardians. The Russo brothers are doing Captain America and stuff.
They treat their Marvel properties and Lucasfilm properties very differently, though, don't they? I mean, even like you mentioned too, with the Star Wars films, apart from the prequels, they always had different directors.
Yeah, I think some of it was the ability to bring in and tell different stories. There seemed to always be a plan to tell a familiar story and then do something drastically different, right? You have to veer away from kind of the status quo at some point. We can't continue to expect them to make Star Wars films that feel like not that The Force Awakens was, but there was a lot of nostalgia built into that. Not very familiar feeling scenes and storylines. And this one, it really veers away from that. So this seems very deliberate to bring in someone like Rian Johnson to do something different. And that's what they're asking him to do with this new trilogy. And I don't think that's a problem. But at the same time, it comes down to fan expectation, a lot of it there, right? And how you perceive that change. Is it change that you want to see? You look at, we had 40 years of storytelling, and we've only got 8 or 9 movies or whatever we have, right? And there's a lot of headcanon there. Yeah. And being with such a rabid fan base, there's going to be expectations that everything's not going to live up to the potential of, say, whatever people's expectations are. Yeah. You look at Marvel, because it's comic book based, they have the ability to do different things. They're not in this really, really tightly confined universe. Mm-hmm. Where Star Wars, Lucasfilm, is trying to break away from that. And this film seems to be that first step in that direction. Yeah. And I can kind of respect that. I don't know where we started with this and why I'm back down this path. But Rey, great character. I thought there was a lot to do there. And, overall, I think her interaction with Luke on Act 2 was a great progression for both characters. Yeah. Because she eventually can't convince him to leave Act 2. And we have Luke Skywalker essentially going to the brink, to putting an end to literally burning down the Last Jedi Order. Mm-hmm. And we get the Yoda, the Force Ghost here.
Thank goodness.
I love that.
That was great.
Great how it came onto the screen. You saw the ears. Yeah. I think I smacked you at that point.
I even looked at you and I was like, yo, that's Yoda.
Oh, I thought you were going to say I looked at you and said, smack me.
Smack me.
Smack me, Tim. I think I'm dreaming. I see a Yoda.
It is a great shot, right? Because you pan out and you see Luke and then you see the ears, right?
Yeah.
The silhouette almost. Of and the classic, Muppet Jim Henson looking
one, right?
Not the prequel looking one, but that's good.
Nailed it.
Frank Oz. He was on set doing that.
Yeah, I mean, we were calling it, right? Because remember going way back in episode, we heard that he was on set or something where he's doing some voiceovers, and so glad he showed up here, and it's actually one of my favorite scenes just to see those two. Because another scene we didn't mention though, but apart from the Yoda scene and Luke, is the Luke and R2. Those two scenes feel so Star Wars for me. That's when I feel like we get the real like Luke Skywalker, Mark Hamill, because him and R2, he's talking to a droid, but it feels just like episode 4 or 5, the talking between them, the banter between the two of them, and again picking up with Yoda here feels just like they're back on
Empire.
Dagobah, and I love it.
It's that so wily Yoda too.
He's
right?
laughing, right? As he uses the lightning bolt to, and if there's anybody else in Star Wars, even like did some outlandish power like what Yoda did, I would have been like, what? But it's Yoda, and it works for me. If this was the Bendu, I would have been like, that's horrible. But Yoda can do it, and it works for me.
Is it appropriate that it is probably the wisest and probably the most respected Jedi that makes the decision, all right, we're going to burn this down?
But he doesn't.
Well, he does, but the genius part is that he knows the books are safe. The books are already with Rey, and he's like, go ahead, burn it down. It'll outlive you.
Yeah, and the way that Luke takes that is that, okay, all the knowledge is in her head, but Yoda's being very literal about that. She has everything she's going to need from her, or whatever he says. I thought that was a brilliant line. Very well executed. And the fact that he's the one that lights fire to this and says, you know what, failure is the best.
Failure is the best teacher.
Best teacher, yeah. And I think that's great. And like that is a direct hit at Luke. Yes. Like you failed, but look, you've got someone here that can carry on this legacy. Because you look at what Rey says to him at the start. She kind of rambles off a few things about Luke Skywalker, and he says, it's amazing because everything you said is absolutely wrong. Yeah. And then he uses that same line later on the flip side of things. Yeah. Right? He's come around full circle when Kylo Ren says, I'm going to strike you. I'm paraphrasing a lot of this, but essentially, I'm going to kill you, Luke Skywalker. You're going to be the last of the Jedi. And he says, you are very, very, everything you said there is absolutely wrong. Yeah. And I thought that was a great take on this. And that's why I'm seeing a lot of the character development of Luke. And you're coming from a very dark place back to almost this Luke Skywalker that we were expecting to be on screen for the entire time.
Yes. And you see growth in Yoda. You see the end of the chapter from the prequel Yoda and the Dagobah Yoda to here. He's learned from all those mistakes just by him dropping that line. Failure is the best teacher. Love it. Yeah.
Brilliant.
So good.
Great Yoda.
And before we get to the end of this film and the big battle sequence at the end, we take a brief pit stop at Canto Bight. Now, we're not going to go into too much detail. We can maybe elaborate this on some other time because this, again, it feels very out of place within this film. And maybe we could have shortened this up and spent a bit more time with Luke and Yoda, or Luke and Rey, or even Kylo Ren and Snoke, because seeing that development of those characters together in scenes, having interactions. But the one thing that I do want to talk about here is once Finn and Rose and BB-8 get this slicer that is DJ and Benicio del Toro's character, kind of a cool character. I like the stutter and all that. Yeah. It is kind of a cool portrayal. But they eventually infiltrate Snoke's ship, the Supremacy, in an effort to shut down the tracker so that they're able to jump to light speed without being tracked by the First Order. But this is where we get the introduction of one, the cool stormtroopers, the Executioner stormtroopers, and two, Captain Phasma comes back. Now, there's a 4-issue miniseries that explained her leaving Starkiller Base and now eventually showing back up on the Supremacy here. And the impression that I got from all of the lead-in material between the novel, which I haven't read yet, and also the 4-issue comic book series, is that Phasma was going to play a much larger role in this film. Well, we didn't really get that. She's in this for maybe 2 minutes.
Maybe even less than The Force Awakens.
You're probably
pretty
right.
On par, yeah.
Yeah, is that possible?
What was your perception of Captain Phasma here? Is this another character that Rian Johnson looked at and said, I don't really know what to do with you, so I'm going to bring you into the story with Finn and Finn and Rose. There seems to be a relationship there between Finn and Phasma. You get that from the Before the Awakening book, which is really good, which I was really hoping for a bit more development on that, and that eventually come episode 9, you're going to see this final showdown. We get a bit of a fight between Finn and Phasma. It kind of ends weird with him falling off, very reminiscent of Back to the Future when he falls off and lands on the DeLorean and comes up and smacks her.
Man, it's so unfortunate for Gwendolyn Christie. Right? Yeah, she's such a great actress, and she got gypped again here. Even more so, I'd say, than Force Awakens, because at least in Force Awakens, they really didn't know what to do with her because they actually thought she was going to be Kylo Ren, at least the armor. So she was really like a last minute thought. Here they should have redeemed her. We got the comic, we got the novel, and they build her up to be like just a badass. And Finn's my dude.
Yeah.
Finn is completely my dude. There's no way he should have been able to beat Phasma. I'm glad he did because I didn't want him to die, but there's no way he should be able to take out Phasma. And I just felt like that was a wasted opportunity. Like, we barely saw her. Why wasn't she chasing down Finn? Like, I would have liked an arc where she was chasing them down the whole time. At least we would have had some more camera time with her.
Yeah, she
goes to like
more.
Canto Bight or something.
Yeah.
So that's unfortunate for that character. She's definitely not surviving this one.
No, because that's the thing I was gonna ask is like she's fallen into this pit now of fire. Are we gonna have another 4-issue miniseries where it's like, oh, by the way, she got off the supremacy too? Don't you worry.
I mean, you know what? We might have to start looking at Star Wars canon when it comes out. If a character's getting so many books and figures and toys and whatnot, those are the same things, then maybe we're not going to get much of that character. Maybe they're going to die. Like if Phasma gets a 4 mini part series of a comic and a novel, then chances are they're probably not making it out.
They haven't even released a black series of Phasma or 3 3/4 inch
of the new model because it's pretty much
the same. But we've gotten repeat characters already. Like, Kylo
Ren's pretty much the same.
In that. But maybe that should have given us indication that we weren't getting anything of her because. Like, she's one of the few characters that we haven't seen in action figure form outside of the Elite series.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's a tough one because you get this character that we all want to see more of.
Close to the Stormtrooper.
She's killed off great. Like, at least her death was, or her apparent death in Force Awakens was off screen. Yeah. This one is you're looking at her if she falls into this pit of fire, right?
And the cheesy line that she, like, sucks that, I mean, she lost, but she says, "You rebel," and he's like, "Rebel scum," and I was like, no, like, some of those lines were really bad in this movie. There's a lot of Independence Day moments where they're yelling, like, if you think Anakin's yippee in the pod race is bad, like in this movie, there's a lot of them like just yelling out nonsense, which I don't really appreciate. I don't really need. I shouldn't say appreciate. I just don't really need that kind of stuff. But for Phasma's last words to hear Finn say, "Make that rebel scum," or whatever, I was like, just go.
Just go.
There's a little bit of disconnect with Finn's character because it kind of strikes me that you bring up about him not being able to beat Phasma. Because if you read Before the Awakening, he's played off like this elite soldier.
Yes.
And then he goes back and he makes reference in this one too about
I'm off the
floors and I would work sanitation.
Yes.
You get a big disconnect, like he was kind of this goofball.
Yeah.
But then in the Before the Awakenings, they play him off as like this soldier. And you see his like you see it when he fights Traitor as well.
Yeah.
Because that's the character in Before the Awakening that he comes up with.
Yeah.
And so you see that nice connection there. And Phasma's in that book, and he's part of that squadron. And then I take more stake in the Before the Awakening in developing Finn's military abilities, his fighting abilities, and that's what we're seeing on screen. But in reflection of the character, you're still not getting that. You're not getting him developing the plans. It's all about Poe. He's just kind of along for the ride.
Yeah, that's a good point I want to mention too. It's pretty goofy, and it kind of feels like, when we go back to the Rebels show, it's very inconsistent, much like how they handle Ezra. One minute Ezra's like goofy, and the next minute he's throwing down with Vader, and same with Finn. Finn was throwing down with Kylo. Next minute he's being tased by
Vader.
Like, those inconsistencies drive me nuts. And I remember when he mentioned that, or in the movie when he says, "I used to mop those floors." It's like, come on, let's get over that.
It makes him seem like a goofball, right?
That goofball because he's like the first in his class or something like that, right?
Yeah, and they did in that book, he does like simulations where they're running around and there's this guy, I can't remember what his designation is, but he's essentially carrying him around and saying, "No, you can do it," and all this. But then you get into the Force Awakens and he has some hesitation because coming off the back end of that, it was all simulations. This is his first in suit battle where he's taking down innocent people, and you see that hesitation. Like, I have all these skills, but I'm not willing to do this to humans that don't deserve it. And then you see that struggle. I like that.
Yeah.
Here, it's always that's that reference, and he is, to a degree, he's a really funny guy.
Yeah.
But they shouldn't use him as just a comedic character.
Exactly.
He doesn't need to be that. He needs to be a bit more. Having much more of an interaction with Phasma would have elevated him to another level.
Yeah.
And given him that opportunity to develop beyond being the comedic relief or the romantic involvement with Rose, right?
Right. Because there's a lot of weight between those two. Because I mean, Phasma even lies for Finn.
Yeah.
You know, Finn did something once before, and I think it's in Force Awakens where the officer confronts her and being like, "Is this his first offense?" And she's like, "No, never done it." But he did before. So obviously she likes this character because he's top ranks in his class. So I wish they kind of sorted that out.
Yeah. I think I might remember too. Now that I'm thinking, we're going back and forth here, but we're talking about Rey's parentage, and I don't know if I ever had. I can't remember if I put my thoughts in about that.
I think you said Darth Vader.
What were your thoughts on that though?
No, I didn't really like it.
Yeah.
But I think he's lying.
Oh yeah, you did.
Did I mention that? Okay. Yeah. I'm just reading through my notes here as we go. I'm like, did I touch
But
it?
I think
JJ's gonna pick that up and do something completely different with it.
Yeah.
No, because I think Ryan Johnson in an interview he said like he could be lying, but he doesn't think he is. So I think he's saying like,
oh yeah, like Kylo Ren doesn't believe he is.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, because like
cool.
he's reading Rey's thoughts in that moment. So Rey maybe like that's her worst fear. Is that her parents are nobodies.
Right.
And so that's what Kylo's picking up on, but maybe she doesn't even know.
But he's still manipulating her at that point, right?
Yeah.
And maybe that's he's telling her that to try to let her, like he talks about killing the past, right?
Yes.
Or forget the past even if you have to kill it. Mm-hmm. So in his mind, he's maybe trying to slay her past and saying, look no further. Like there's nothing there.
Yeah.
Come with me.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
That's kind of how I'm taking it. And the fact that I think to me it's still there that there could be a larger lineage. But then when you go back to the end of the film, the random orphan kid that pulls the broom, you know, that might be a nod towards the fact that you don't need to be a Kenobi or a Palpatine or a Skywalker to be powerful in the Force. It can just happen, right? Like it just happened with Anakin.
Yeah, which we've always gotten, right? I mean, you go back to the Jedi Academy, there's been tons of Jedis that don't have that lineage, but it's the Skywalker lineage that's pretty powerful, but Rey could still be powerful. She's just not related to any of those characters.
You bring up a good point about the Skywalker lineage, and for me, who only watches the movies, Luke Skywalker is like the Superman or like the Iron Man of the franchise. Like he is the guy. So like, you know, I've always known of Luke Skywalker, even though I haven't seen all the movies growing up. I'd be like, oh yeah, Luke Skywalker, like he is the man. Him and Darth Vader. Darth Vader's bad. Luke Skywalker's good. And you know, so it's like I'm super excited. You know, Force Awakens comes out, and I just watched like the original trilogy, and I'm like, Luke Skywalker is awesome. And then Force Awakens, oh he's coming back, like this is awesome. And then Last Jedi, oh he's gonna be in it more, like oh that's awesome. And then at the end, they kill him.
Yeah.
They kill Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, I know.
We haven't even talked about this. We're 2 hours into this film, and we haven't even talked about Luke Skywalker is dead.
Yes. He's very dead. Can we put a pin in that just for maybe 5 minutes?
Okay.
We got to talk about one kick-ass action sequence before we get that.
Cool.
We've talked about the death of Snoke. We've talked about the supremacy here. We've got Finn, Rose. Everyone is on this ship. We've got Holdo eventually cutting through this thing in an epically shot sequence.
Cool.
Amazing.
Cinematography, turning off the sound there, absolutely brilliant. But the thing that one of my favorite sequences here outside of the start of the Battle of Crate is this fight with Kylo, Rey, and the Praetorian Guards after Snoke is killed.
Yeah.
This is one of the, if not the best lightsaber sequences in Star Wars.
Sick.
Outside of maybe that Vader sequence at the end of Rogue One, this almost takes the cake for me.
Yeah, it's pretty.
I was on the edge of my seat for this. There's some really cool stuff in here. It's very quick. It's not so much like the prequels where you're flipping and spinning
Very
and all that.
acrobatic, right?
Yeah.
But it's very, very graceful in its execution. And some of the scenes here when Rey drops the lightsaber and then bends down and recatches it,
That was wicked.
cuts the guy open, and then when she chucks it to Kylo and he catches it, and
Oh man,
That
those
was
are the two highlights for me.
awesome scenes.
Yeah.
Just and like you said, to the backdrop of all the red. In the throne room, you've got pieces of Snoke laying there. You've got all these really cool, like we've never seen the Emperor Royal Guards really in action.
Yeah.
And this is a bit of that, I think.
Yeah, like that cool whip, how like he can like, bend it with his arms.
Oh
and
yeah,
stuff as
that was
he's
really
taking
cool.
Rey's lightsaber.
Yeah, and
that was cool.
And
Yeah.
they seem to have a bit more powers because they're able to deflect a bit more of the lightsabers, right?
Yeah.
Lightsabers just weren't chopping through their weapons and all that.
That's right.
But this is a fantastic scene, and I love how it ends. Them struggling. Again, this comes to the balance idea. Both of them are struggling over this lightsaber. and it eventually pops in half.
Yeah.
And this to me is where the movie, like I've really, really enjoyed to this point, but this to me is where it absolutely takes off.
This one kicks up for sure.
Yeah.
Like this is next level lightsaber battle, and then we go into the Battle of Crate, and this comes down to me. Like you said, the cinematography before this. This is an unreal battle. Like the consequences of it are huge, but also how it looks, the white and then the pops of red.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, did I love this.
Epic, epic, epic.
Like when they're standing and you're getting the TIE fighters shooting the ground and the ground's popping red.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, you get these B-wing looking ships that have the whatever it is that's kind of put down.
Oh, those rust bucket kind of things.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
And
the,
you-
yeah,
you-
the
you-
shitty ships.
Yeah, and you've got the red smoke almost looking like coming behind them. This is a really cool scene. Now, we're going to get a comic book called Storms of Crate, which is going to go into a bit more detail about this being a former Rebel base, something that Luke and Leia both go and look at prior to episode 5,
yeah.
Empire Strikes Back. And so it's going to be cool to tie all that together. What are you guys' thoughts on this final big battle sequence on Crate?
Before I get into that, just quickly, at the end of the fight with Rey and Kylo, and he's like, join me. Should have joined him, man. Like, it would have made sense because they took out the big bad, and then the First Order is like, should have joined him, and then she could have changed the First Order from the inside. Like, I don't know what the Rebels' plans are about changing the First Order if they win this fight. I mean, they have like 20 people left, so I don't know how they're gonna rule the entire galaxy. But she could have taken over. But that was just my thoughts. I was like, join him. It would have been such an interesting story. Like if she joined with Kylo, and then you set up like these new guys, and then like Luke comes back with Leia, and then they got a battle like new versus old. That would have been cool to see something like that as well. But the Battle of Crate, is it?
Yeah.
I loved it. Missed opportunity. Kylo should have been like, I hate salt. That would have been so cool if he said
Gets
that.
everywhere.
Yeah, it's so coarse.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
missed opportunity. If he wants to be like his grandpa, he should have said that. But no, it looks beautiful, and the reds, and it's just a very cool looking scene. They could have had this fight in a million different places, and I'm glad they chose the white and the red. And red really seems to be the color of this movie.
Yeah.
Look at the movie poster; it's red. Snoke's throne room is red. Even the Black Series, the background is red. I don't know if they're always red, but in this case, they look to be red. So, and then the red smoke plumes coming up. Definitely red is in, and I dug it. It looked beautiful, as you said. It's just something. That's what we go to see Star Wars, is something we've never seen before on film, and this is one of those scenes.
Yeah.
It's got walkers too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, why did Kylo Ren, going back to that lightsaber, why did he want that lightsaber? Was it just because it was his grandfather's? Because it was Luke's? Because I mean, he certainly didn't need it, right? He had his.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm trying to think back. This is another thing that we're gonna have to come back to
Yeah.
at some point, because it's the first thing I said when we walked to this film was this was a really dense film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even though I've seen it 2 times, and just seeing it,
I know.
it's hard to pick up on everything.
Yeah.
It's the exact motivation as to why I wanted it. Because I liked at the end too, she's holding it and you can see the kyber crystal in it.
Yeah, that's cool.
Really,
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, you guys covered it all with Crate. Crate was awesome. What more can I say about that? But then leading in to when Luke shows up, that was huge. That was huge. He comes in with the hood. He kind of reminded me of Obi-Wan. You know, when you first see Obi-Wan, he's kind of coming in kind of weird.
Yeah.
Then you finally see Luke come in, and it's kind of very reminiscent of that. That was great. And he has this moment with Carrie Fisher, which was just that was incredible.
Does it bother you at all that they never had a physical reunion? Like they did, but it was a forced projection. They never had that, and the exchange of the dice as well was really cool.
Yeah, you know, I feel bad for the dice because the dice wasn't actually physically there. But apart from that, because they've always had that connection anyways, where, you know, like I mentioned before with Bespin, they had that mental connection. But for her to actually see Luke, and to see Luke in a way that she liked, because this isn't the Luke that's on the island. This looks like the Luke that's younger, that trained Kylo. Probably the last time she saw Luke, he looked like that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool. His hair was shorter. So that was great. The weird thing was the lightsaber that he chose, which was the one that he just destroyed. So the lightsaber that Luke chose is the lightsaber that Kylo Ren literally just destroyed.
But did he know it got destroyed? Because it kind of blew up, and he was knocked unconscious. And then,
okay.
and
So
then
you might have
Ray
not
like
realized.
scooped it up
Yeah,
and took
that's
off,
true.
right?
That's true. I just wish, like, just for the sake of it, they just gave him the green one.
Yeah.
Like, just give us the green, man.
Yeah.
Because the one thing I wonder about it, and it was a cool idea, this concept, and it was something different we've seen from the Force, him actually projecting himself. And I'm wondering, it would have probably made more sense for the green, because I'm curious if people were seeing him in a different light, like because he was projecting himself. Were people seeing him as they last saw him or as they remembered him? That's why I always took why he looked younger.
Right.
Because at first I was like, where did he take a pit stop to cut his hair and dye his beard?
Exactly.
And all that. And they've done some, I think, CGI manipulating of his body.
Yeah.
Because his legs looked a bit longer than, like, he looked a bit out of proportion.
Yeah.
Well, it makes sense. I mean, if you're going to project yourself, I'm going to project my best self,
Yeah, of
right?
course,
I'm not
yeah.
going to project 30-year-old me. I'm going to project like when I was in my prime, like 25-year-old me. Like,
Yeah.
You know, I'm not going to project as an old bum.
Well, the cool thing is, though, right, is that we did get to see Luke kind of fight, but I wanted him actually there. I didn't actually want the Force power. The Force power was kind of cool. I still feel like the Kylo and the Rey connection was the best Force power we saw in this whole movie. This is the best new power they introduced to us. But I mean, when you go back to Octu, we see the X-wing in the water. So nice. Luke went back in the X-wing and he's went to crate.
Did you think there's going to be a Yoda moment where he lifts up the X-Wing?
That would have been pretty cool.
And said, like, boom, it's there. I'm in, I'm out.
That would have been awesome. That would have been
go.
awesome. But even just that nod to seeing that X-wing, and then we piece together, okay, well, that's how he's on crate.
Yeah.
That would have totally been fine with. The cool thing is with the hologram, watching it the second time, Luke's feet never makes the red
I didn't
sand
catch
go.
that.
Oh,
Yeah, you
yeah,
don't
I never
see
got
it.
that.
Well, okay, some of the guys we went and had a beer after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Someone mentioned that to me.
Yeah.
I never caught that until
Yeah,
the
because
second
when
time.
Kylo slides right through him,
Yeah.
you see Kylo's skin marks, but you don't see like Luke's.
When he does that weird
Yeah.
like bend thing, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, when I watched this the first time, I can honestly say I don't know if that was me just being in the moment or not. I thought he was actually there.
Luke?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought
Yeah, me too. Yeah,
that's what I
absolutely,
thought.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure. That's what I'm saying. I thought he came in the X-wing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I never thought any different.
Yeah.
And then I really, when he kind of went and struck through him, I was like, oh man, we're going Obi-Wan here.
Oh,
Did you think he
Like
was
this-
dead?
I thought he was sacrificing himself because Poe makes that reference, right? He's distracting him so that the resistance can live on.
Yeah.
The same way that Obi-Wan made that sacrifice for Luke, Leia, Han, and Chewie, right?
Yeah.
Is that he let himself die for the greater good. He gave himself for the Force so that they could escape.
Right.
And I was seeing Luke in that same way, that okay, he's gonna let Kylo strike him down,
Right.
so that the rest of them can escape.
Right.
And when he went right through him, I was like, whoa, that's a new Force power.
Yeah.
Like, how'd that happen?
Yeah, exactly. How did that work?
Yeah.
But the scene when he puts the all the cannons on Luke, and I was like, "Okay, Kylo Ren, you're a coward." Like that's kind of lame. But at the same time, when he's shooting, because I'm still thinking this is Luke, I'm like, "Whoa,
Yeah.
this is like some Dragon Ball Z stuff. Like he's dodging all these
Yeah.
lasers. This is awesome." And then I thought he's gonna do like some Rebel stuff, because in Rebels we've seen Kanan like take on an AT-AT with his lightsabers.
Yeah.
Something nice. We're gonna get Luke hop around like Yoda, and he's gonna take down these weapons, and I'm like, oh shoot, we didn't
The
get
dust
that.
off the shoulder?
That sucked for me. I did
Really? Because the whole
yeah.
audience laughed.
I know, and I was like,
should they
"He
be
just
laughing
did
at that scene?"
You know what the thing is? It wasn't the fact that he did this. It just didn't look cool. How he doesn't have the swagger to pull it
No.
off. It wasn't even the fact that he wanted to do that. It just
Well, it's your same reference to when they're talking about the big ass door. Is it too much real world
yes
in Star Wars?
Yes, like the casino and then that and the
Yeah.
big ass door. It just feels too much like our planet.
yeah.
And we didn't even talk about the leprechaun in the casino.
And the money coming
Yeah.
out of
BB-8.
That was
That
like
was
a prequel.
very
Horrible.
prequel era
It's like,
stuff.
with the oil. Yeah.
Ugh.
I got that reference.
Okay, Captain America. Now, back to, as you had mentioned, the
The
death of Luke Skywalker.
He's gone. Luke Skywalker.
I don't think he's not gone. He's physically gone.
We'll see him as a Force ghost.
But
Yeah.
he's just a Force ghost. Like, is he gonna be behind like Rey making pottery with her? Like,
Ghost.
he's just a ghost now, right?
Yeah, I feel you though. I wish they didn't kill him off. At least not for this movie. I still feel like there's no reason why he couldn't have been present on that planet and done what he's done. He could have defeated Kylo Ren. I mean, he's Luke Skywalker. He could have.
Yeah, Kylo Ren
He could
is
have done
no
that.
match for Luke.
But again, like I mentioned before, so going back to this movie and revisiting it the second time, I do appreciate Luke more so because the Luke that you see at the beginning of this movie is pretty much the Luke you see at the end. Like he sticks to his guns. He still feels the same way about the Jedi. He feels
Yeah.
the exact same way. He wasn't leaving that island. He didn't.
Yeah.
He didn't leave that island, right?
Give him credit.
Yeah.
Now, did he die from the physical strain of projecting himself and doing all this, or did he give himself to the Force with the knowledge that, okay, Rey is there, she can be the one that can carry this mantle. I've now allowed Poe, Finn, and Leia, what is going to be now the core of the Resistance, to live on, to fight another day against the First Order. Like, how do you think that he came to the conclusion, or maybe Rian Johnson came to the conclusion, that it was appropriate for Luke Skywalker to die in that moment? Very similar to the way that Yoda dies, just kind of disappears, right?
Yeah, I think it must have been a strain. I think that power must take a lot, and for Luke's age too at that point, he's Luke doesn't age like Yoda. He's not like 900 years old. He just ages like a regular person. So I think doing that Force power at that age probably takes a lot of toll on his body. Because I mean, if you go back, I'm guessing this all takes place roughly within the same day. We just saw Luke, squeezing milk out of something, and then he's hopping across the sea with his big hunting spear, right? His fishpole. So he seemed like he was relatively healthy at the time, but then this obviously took quite a bit of a toll on his body.
Yeah. He didn't even, if he could have like manifested himself, he could have just been lying in bed the whole time and just force ghosted some fish and brought it and some milk. Like, why even get up at that point, right? Like, you don't have to do anything. You could just think about how awesome that power would be. If I could have one Star Wars power, it'd be that, snowing outside today in Calgary, be like, all right, well, I'm not going to go into work, but my Force ghost will. Like, how cool is that?
You'll be dead. Yeah. It's like an astral projection, like Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I took it as.
2 weeks.
I guess that is.
He does, because he goes to the planet to fight him, and he's there. He picks up like dice and stuff. So.
Which were those dice? Like, did we see those dice in the movies before, or was that?
Just so that's a nod a bit to, I think, we're gonna see in the Han Solo movie.
Oh.
They're in A New Hope.
Oh, okay.
They are dice hanging from the Falcon.
Oh.
And I think the original set were actually stolen.
Oh, really?
So I think that was maybe a nice nod to something we could see. I think there's even talks that those dice might have been the reason he won the ship from Lando.
Cool.
Oh, okay.
So it's something that extends all the way back in the lineage of Han Solo. So it might be more of a nod to the coming Han Solo movie, just kind of linking that up a little bit more.
Speaking of Lando, I thought, when they did the Resistance call, we were going to see, well, hello there. We're going to see Lando.
Episode 9.
He better, man.
You think so?
I think
Billy D?
I think that the call to arms is going to be for the Resistance now, right? They're down to, 10 people?
Yeah.
Kind of a small core of people with a Jedi.
Yeah.
Like, it reminds me a bit of Rebels, kind of.
Yeah.
In the sense that they've got this small group of people, and they're all going to have their own stories. It's going to be about rebuilding the Resistance to oppose the First Order.
Yeah.
But overall, you know what? Like, the death of Luke Skywalker, was I expecting it? No. Am I okay with it? Yeah, I think so. I think that it almost becomes a step that they need to go, because I think they're going to go Force Ghost. So I'm not concerned with not seeing, in the same sense that we're not going to see Han Solo ever again. I think we're going to see Luke Skywalker all over the place in Episode 9.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be a big part of it. If he can do what he did already, imagine what he can do now. Look what Yoda's doing. He's essentially physically present, because he's smacking Luke with the cane and all, right? So is there, or is the Force progressed to a point where it no longer is bound by the physicality of life and death? Like, can you, maybe not in the same way, because Luke never really touches Kylo. He kind of moves around his lightsaber a bit. Mm-hmm. So maybe that kind of stretch, or that leap between the physical world and what is the Force, or some sort of astral projection, isn't quite there. But Yoda proved that maybe it is.
Yeah.
I don't know. So I'm not concerned about it. Like, I thought that it maybe didn't suit kind of the end.
Yeah.
The same way that maybe we're looking, or I was looking, for a much grander death of Luke Skywalker.
Totally.
But this seemed like a sacrificial death. Like, if I'm going to do this is a one and done type thing. If I do this astral or this Force projection, then that is my sacrifice. I have to give myself to the Force for allowing me to do this. That's maybe kind of how I'm taking it in my head a bit more.
Yeah.
It's overall greater good sacrifice.
Because I do like the whole turnaround, with the twin sons, obviously, coming down. Like, I thought that was nice. Like, that really worked for me.
That moment
was great. It was, that makes it a good send-off. I wanted more of that fight. I mean, going back to Vader in Rogue One, obviously, then the fight you just mentioned. before with the duel of, I don't know what we would call it, the duel on Snoke's lair there.
Yeah.
Whatever that was. That's up
supremacy.
There. The supremacy. Like, that was great. And I felt like this is the last time we're going to see Luke fight. I wanted more. I really wanted more of like the actual combat of Luke with the lightsaber. Because we never really got to see Luke throw down. We've seen a little bit in the comics and the games, but now I really want that Sebastian Stan movie, the standalone. Just give me him playing Luke in his prime and mowing down some people with that lightsaber.
But is there anyone left that's on Luke's level after Snoke is gone? Like Rey or Kylo Ren isn't on Luke's level.
Well, that's the thing. I always feel like since the prequels, the Jedi's, since Vader and Palpatine have gotten weaker. Like, really, Luke's never really been trained properly in the ways of the Jedi. Like, he's not whipping around a lightsaber like Kit Fisto or any of those guys or Mace Windu, right? And then Rey's underneath Luke, so I feel like they're kind of getting weaker in a sense. Like, if you took some of those Jedi guys, some of the Jedi's from the Jedi Order, and had them fight those guards that Kylo and Rey struggled with, like, they would have taken them out, like, no problem.
Yeah.
Easy.
Yeah.
Well, guys, we're 2 hours and 10 minutes here. This is going to be one of our longer episodes, and very deserving. And you know what? We probably didn't touch on everything we needed to. I think we hit on the main points, and we aired some of our grievances, and also highlighted some of the things that I think this film did really well. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, I got to ask you guys a question.
All right.
Do you recommend Star Wars: The Last Jedi?
I'll go first because mine's probably the shortest. Absolutely. Everyone's talking about the film, so if you don't want to be left out, go and see it. Make up your own mind. Do you agree with the critics? Do you agree with the audience score? What do you agree with? At the end of the day, these movies are made. Everyone takes something different out of them. I've said this before for numerous other films, so... Hey, that's a terrific film, okay? So go and watch these movies for yourself, and... I would definitely recommend it. You cannot not see it, so yeah, everyone else has seen it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it's a Star Wars film, right? If you're listening to this, obviously you like Star Wars, so you have to see this film. You can't not see this film. All film's subjective, and so is humor. And the humor doesn't really work with me in this film so much. It's not my favorite Star Wars movie, but it's not like a horrible film by any means. It's just not really up there for my standards. And I feel there's more bad than good in this film, but it's not a horrible film.
All right, guys. Well, as we've talked through this, like I said, we've put a few things on the table here that I want us to talk about a bit more in the future. And do I personally recommend this? Of course. I'm a huge Star Wars fan, always will be. Is this the best Star Wars film since Empire Strikes Back? Probably not. Does this film accomplish what it needs to? 100% yes. It introduces us to a whole bunch of new concepts within the Star Wars universe, whether it's the Force, Luke Skywalker, and some of the great character development that we get from Kylo Ren. This is an appropriate second step to this trilogy. Coming back to J.J. Abrams, getting back to maybe more of that nostalgic approach, maybe we're going to see a bit more of that. But we've got a fresh slate for J.J. Abrams to work off of now. And I think that's really going to benefit him and the character developments and the narrative that they could place into Episode 9 to give us a really worthy conclusion for this original or this first trilogy within what I'm going to call the Disney era of Star Wars. I loved what they did with some of the character elements in here. My second viewing, I got through a lot of the things that I did have issues with coming out on the other side. But standing on the other side of this, I really enjoyed it my first viewing. I saw some of the flaws that we pointed out, but I also saw a lot of the good stuff. Mm-hmm. And it's a Star Wars film. It's fun. The space scenes the battles are epic. The battles are awesome. The lightsaber dueling is absolutely fantastic. No, we don't get all the answers to things, but there's also a lot of questions that are posed at the end of this. So I'm looking forward to revisiting this with maybe our dude Izzy Nobre, who absolutely hated this film. I'd like to bring in some other people to talk about some of the details of this and see where fandom lies on this broad spectrum of this film. Let's get some perspective of people that didn't like it, and maybe bring in a few other people that really did like it from out in the Commonwealth there. So I want to try to continue this dialogue as we go into the new year, because we're coming up on episode 100 next week.
Wow.
It's crazy, right? And we're going to be doing our year in review for 2017, talking to the best in comics, best in movies, best in TV shows. We did our collecting episode with Corey from Over the Tumbling Saber a couple of weeks ago, so check that one out. So we're going to be staying a little bit away from the collecting because we already kind of wrapped it up for 2017. But overall, this has been an absolute blast, guys. I love talking Star Wars. We're finally here. It's time to drive towards Han Solo in 6 months and follow it up with Episode 9. But like I said, we're going to be revisiting this. And if you guys have some input into the show or want to talk a little bit more about some of the ideas you had for the Force Awakens, not for the Force Awakens, for The Last Jedi that maybe we missed on, or some of the ideas that may be a bit more controversial coming from the table tonight, make sure to email us at thenerdrm@gmail.com. You can hit us up on Facebook or YouTube. You can also grab us on Twitter. Our handles are at the end of the episode. You can also grab us at thenerdroom.net. We're going to be picking up the momentum here going into the new year for the Nerd Room with episode 100. We're talking about launching another retrospective series. We had to get back on board with the MCU coming into the new year. Now that I'm fully moved, we can get concentrating back on the important things like reviewing Iron Man 3, The Winter Soldier, Guardians of the Galaxy. So we've got big movies to drive into before we get to Avengers Infinity War. Now, guys, last thing I'm going to do here before we sign off very, very quickly, because we're really extended time here, is Star Wars rankings.
Uh-oh.
Ooh.
Where do you put The Last Jedi?
Oh my goodness.
Oof.
That's a toughie. All right. Honestly, somewhere in the middle. I'd have to think of it. Definitely prefer Force Awakens, Rogue One, Empire. What's the first one called? The First
New
Jedi?
Hope.
Yeah, New Hope.
The First Jedi. Sure.
Even maybe some of the prequels, like the last one, I really like. Revenge of the Sith. That's a solid one.
Oh, yeah.
Not a big fan of this episode
Attack of the
6.
Clones? Oh, Return of the Jedi?
Return of the Jedi. Yeah.
Ewoks,
Yeah, that's just doesn't do it for me. And Phantom Menace.
Hmm.
So this would probably be on, like, what's episode 2 you just said?
Attack of the Clones?
Attack of the Clones. A little bit above Attack of the Clones.
There's a lot of similar scenes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, Troy? The boy.
I go Empire. Empire is number 1. Revenge of the Sith is my number 2. Force Awakens is my number 3. And Return of the Jedi, number 4. A New Hope. And then Phantom Menace, Rogue One.
Wow.
Yeah. This guy, Last Jedi, is down there. And then Attack of the Clones is the last.
So you like Phantom
bottom.
Menace above this?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Duel of Fates. Oh, I love Duel of Fates. Yeah. Yeah, I'll take that.
Jar Jar.
Jar Jar's horrible. But you know, every Star Wars movie has that thing that you just don't like, whether it's more Tullet, whatever it's called, or
More Gullet.
More Gullet. Yeah, there's all that kind of stuff. There's always those things that you got to skip. But
yeah,
I'll still take my Phantom Menace over this movie for now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right,
Who would have thought Troy would be harsher on Star Wars than me?
There you go.
I thought we were reviewing.
That's the beauty of it all.
Yeah.
That's
Who
the
would
beauty.
have thought I walked out of Justice League, a movie that wasn't on my most anticipated film,
And you liked
and
it.
I felt okay walking out of that.
Yeah.
I did the first time. I'm not saying it's better. I'm just, I felt better walking out of that film.
Yeah, that's why you got to go see the movies, as we always say.
Exactly.
Make your own opinions.
Exactly. Make your own opinions.
That's what I love about
what
this.
it's all about.
We love talking through. We were able to do this without anyone throwing any huge insults at another human being.
Exactly.
For now. Just don't listen to our Batman v Superman review episode. That's when things get hairy.
I never insulted a single person. I don't think. Anyways, my ranking, of course,
Yes.
Empire Strikes Back
Yes.
again. I've got Rogue One right at the top there. I absolutely
wow.
love that film. New Hope, Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, and then Return of the Jedi. I don't know. And Last Jedi to me are kind of like tumbling around there in the middle.
Return of the Jedi and Last Jedi?
I got kind of them kind of. The Last Jedi right now, it's hard, very fluid list.
Right.
I kind of got it stuck in the middle.
Yeah.
Amongst these, like when I walked into Rogue One last year, I was in love with that film. I was just floored by how good that film is, and that still ranks really high for me.
Absolutely.
And this one, I didn't have quite the same reaction walking out of the theater. That's kind of what I'm basing it off of. So it's sitting kind of there in the middle. I think I like Force Awakens a bit better than this one.
And where's Force Awakens sit, sorry?
I've got Empire, Rogue One, New Hope, Force Awakens.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So somewhere in the middle there,
Yeah.
kind of with you, Sunjay. It's kind of floating around there amongst Return of the Jedi, Revenge of the Sith at this point in time. And we'll see how that changes with repeat viewings. Probably a third one coming up here over Christmas.
And then Solo around the corner.
Solo around the corner. And that's one thing. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, before we close up and wrap up, we always talk about first box office weekends. What about second? Any quick predictions on what the second weekend's going to bring in? So first one was 220 or 215?
220.
220. What do you think second weekend? Is this thing gonna drop? I mean, any predictions?
Oof, I got no idea.
Under 100 million second weekend.
Just under.
Yeah, under.
I'm gonna go under as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna say somewhere like around 92.
Yeah.
Yeah, Pitch Perfect comes out and Jumanji.
Jumanji, I heard good things.
Yeah, very good things.
Yeah.
Anyways, gentlemen, I guess this is the last time we'll be talking to you guys before Christmas.
Yeah.
So, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays
Yes.
for all that you
Same to
celebrate.
Same to you, yeah.
Hope everyone has a fantastic couple of days off. And we'll be back next week with our year in review episode number 100. Doing a little bit of celebrating. We'll see. I don't know what we're going to do. I haven't quite got there yet. It's been a bit of a whirlwind type week. But overall, I hope you guys have an enjoyable time. And thank you for coming back and listening to us week in and week out. We really appreciate you guys. And we'll be talking to you next week.
Yeah, and for the 99th time, thank you for entering our nerd room.
Yes. You took my line. All right, guys. For the Nerd Room, I'm Tim.
I'm Troy.
And I'm Sunjay.
And thank you for entering, for the 99th time, the Nerd Room. This has been a Nerd Room podcast production. You can find our hosts, Tim, Troy, and Sunjay on Twitter at TheNerdRM, TroyTheBoy87, and Sunjabby. For more content from the Nerd Room, check out thenerdroom.net. And don't forget to subscribe to the Nerd Room on iTunes, Podbean, and YouTube. Be sure to head over to StarWarsCommonwealth.com to find more podcasts in the Star Wars Commonwealth Podcast Network, including Talk Star Wars, Tumbling Saber, Generation X-Wing, Rogue Squadron Podcast, Skyrim Podcast, and San Diego Sabres. Follow the Star Wars Commonwealth on Twitter at SW Commonwealth and take your first steps into a larger world.